Welcome in to Check the Mic. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live on YouTube. It is time for our Week 6 NFL review here, Sam.
It is. It is. Week 6 review already. The season's flying by, but we're here and rocking it.
We're here. We're in the groove. You have a chair that doesn't squeak.
I do.
Hopefully it won't sink on you so that you look that much shorter than me today, but we're ready to go.
Yeah, the chair's been the problem. That's why
I look
short compared
the chair's been the problem. All right, man. We got a lot to talk about here today, as always. Shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks. My lineup is still alive here.
Is it really?
It is. Yeah.
How many down?
I got 2 out of 3 tonight. Okay. I need James Cook going more,
despite his toe injury and strange off-field.
Yeah, I picked James Cook prior to the any sort of injury report or anything, but I had the more than David Montgomery's rushing yard total projection and the Roma Dunze's projection. We went more than on that as well yesterday.
Did I get?
So I'm now 8 for 8 on projections.
Damn it!
So far,
I was 3 from 4 yesterday. Just the Arizona Cardinals fumbling the ball away every 3 minutes robbed me.
Which we'll talk about, as always. We will talk about in a minute here at some point. Yeah, so you guys could join the action over at Prize Picks as well. Join the fun. Prize Picks app, download it, use the code CheckTheMic, get $50 instantly when you play $5. Let's start with Thursday Night Football here. San Francisco 49ers moved to 3-3 with a 36-24 win over the Seattle Seahawks. Brock Purdy finishes with 255 yards and 3 touchdowns. Nice game for him. And the Niners' run game, 228 yards on the ground, including a 76-yarder from Isaac Guerendo, who had to come in for Jordan Mason, had a little AC joint sprain. See what happens with him. They get the extra time for him to recover, but you're down to third, fourth string running backs, and the Niners still moving the ball pretty well against the Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, for a while, this looked like an absolute beatdown for the 49ers. They just looked like a better team, even though both sides are pretty banged up. Like, they were 16-0 up, and then it was 23-3, and then Laviska Shenault, the kickoff return, touchdown, really sparked the game back into life from Seattle's point of view. Then they really started to come back, and it took, the Guerendo thing, like whether or not. So apparently we speculated in our sort of live reaction show that when he was on his run, it felt like he was doing the math, mentally calculating, should I go down? Should I score? What's the correct outcome for this run? Apparently what he was actually doing was like looking for the sideline to be told one way or the other.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Because the guy's so fast, it's like, all right, he's gone. But
right.
If he chose not to be gone, he's
so while he was running, he was like checking back at the 49ers sideline, waiting for instruction of whether he should go down or score. He chose to go down. Either way, like it took that big run to sort of stop the rod or stop seal the game eventually for the 49ers.
Yeah, so Niners are technically in first place here. They're 3-3. Are they the best 3-3 team in history? I love asking those questions early in the season. But yeah, the Niners technically in first place now in the NFC West. That's 3 straight losses for the Seahawks. It does feel like Seattle offensively, and again, I know defensively they've been missing a ton of players, still missing players up front, but offensively kind of getting out of their rhythm here where Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet are a pretty good 1-2 punch. Geno Smith having to throw the ball 52 times. Once again, pass game guy over here. Love the pass game, but I think for the rest of the show, I'll be raving about running backs and how well a bunch of those guys played this week. Seattle becoming this one-dimensional offense, I think, has been a challenge over these last couple weeks. And the Niners offense just keeps going, man. Deebo Samuel with the big 76-yarder early. Brock Purdy with a dime to George Kittle in the red zone for a nice 10-yard touchdown. There's still a lot to like about San Francisco and their offense. I do think their defense is like still a step back from last year, but Fred Warner continues to play at an extremely high level with his peanut punches.
Yeah, I mean, NFL defenders across the board have gotten so good at that. I think Darius Butler was talking about how offensive players have sort of forgotten to carry the ball in the correct hand. Like, you're supposed to carry it on the outside arm so that can't happen as often, and a lot of them aren't. That may be part of it, but the accuracy and reliability that NFL defenders have these days for those punching the ball loose plays is crazy. Like, it's the development of that relative to like the 1980s or 1990s is absolutely nuts. Like if you carry the ball in any way loosely and one of those guys gets you within the sights, the ball's out. It's crazy how good they are at that.
It is remarkable. So now Niners play the Chiefs coming off a bye. That's an interesting, obviously, Super Bowl rematch, but interesting matchup here where the Chiefs are on a bye. They'll play next week. The Niners are on a mini bye coming off the Thursday night game. So it's, kind of equal-ish playing field there. Seahawks travel to Atlanta, trying to avoid the fourth straight loss next week against the NFC South leaders. Anything else on Thursday Night Football here, Sam?
Debo had an incredible game. That long touchdown that he scored, that only happens if he comes back towards the football. Like if he just waits on that, it's maybe broken up or he's hit and dropped pretty much where he catches it. Him coming towards the football not only made the catch, but broke the angle of the safety. I think it was Julian Love, right? Who just sort of flew by him looking to try and get a hit at the end of that play. That's such a high level, sort of small thing that he does. Like people think of him as just this gadget running back / wide receiver hybrid, but that's like top end, high level wide receiver instinct stuff that a lot of high end wide receivers don't have. And he has that innately and turned a pretty decent play into a big game breaking touchdown.
Yeah, something you have, like when you're evaluating football, you have to take that stuff into consideration. There's a lot of plays that where the receiver makes the quarterback look bad by not working back to the ball, by not taking good angles back toward the ball, by rounding routes and letting defenders undercut it. So all those subtleties of the position are huge. And again, the Niners, having Debo, this was a Debo big play game, right? I mean, they just have different players every single week. Ayuk broke a big one. I mean, they just have, that was last week. They just have different players every single week that are capable of doing it.
Even with a bunch of them missing.
It did get to that point where we were thinking about, is this another 10-point lead that they're going to blow, though? Like, they were close, right? They got it within 5, Seattle. But the Niners held on. The biggest play in this game, really quick, talking about receivers making the quarterback look worse, was the Geno Smith interception where DK Metcalf was kind of running a dig. I think he was running a dig route and kind of faded into a post, easily undercut by Renardo Green, second-round rookie by the 49ers. That set up the Niners going up by 2 scores in the fourth quarter.
3 plays to DK Metcalf. Like, this game hinged on all 3. Like, there's the touchdown where he was a toe out of bounds. There's the play, a giant deep shot to him where instead of coming back to the ball, doing a Deebo Samuel on it, he sort of waited for it to arrive, and that allowed the safety, George Odom, to break it up. And then there's the play you're talking about where there's a miscommunication between him and his quarterback, and it turns into an interception. Like, those are 3 massively high leverage plays to DK Metcalf that all broke against Seattle.
Absolutely huge. All right, we got to get to the London game. Chicago Bears moving to 4-2 here, 35-16 over the Jags. Jags fall to 1-5 and have to stay in London to play the 1-5 Patriots next week. But the Bears 4-2 start. Courtney Cronin of ESPN with the stat. This is the first time a number 1 overall pick has been 4-2 at any point. Number 1 overall pick at quarterback. Another really crisp outing, I thought, from Caleb Williams and the Bears. It was close at the half. They scored just before the half, the Bears, to go up 14-3. Jags come out, turn it over early in the third quarter. It was the first play from scrimmage in the third quarter, I believe it was. Caleb Williams hit Keenan Allen with a beautiful back shoulder, first of 2 touchdowns. Caleb Williams to Keenan Allen. Caleb finishes with 4 passing touchdowns in this, and the Bears ran away with it in the second half.
Yeah, that was a really nice pass to Keenan Allen. It was a really nice snag as well, because that was one where he's running an in-breaking route. He turns around, the ball sort of high and outside of him. That
perfect
to continue to kind of contort your way back outside and make that catch is not an easy thing to do. Perfect pass, perfect ball location. It's where it needed to be, but also perfect catch and sort of reaction to that by Keenan Allen. Like, those two were on the same page in a major way for the first time, really, this season.
They really were, yeah.
Like, that was what people were expecting to see heading into the season. In fact, this entire offense, like, this is what this looked like for the first time what the offseason hype was about, right? This was what people were hoping and expecting to see. Caleb in the zone, making some good plays, and also just delivering the ball to his playmakers. Keenan Allen, Roma Dunze, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet with a huge game, moonlighting as a long snapper as well. Like, this is what this offense was supposed to look like and hasn't really for most of the season so far.
Yeah, the rhythm and the consistency of the offense. Look, Caleb Williams has a bad interception middle of the second quarter, complete underthrow.
But could have been a touchdown, right?
It could. I mean, if he laid it out there, I mean, it was like 20 yards underthrown. If he threw it 20 yards deeper, it's probably a touchdown. It was a bad underthrown interception. You take that play away, everything else was really crisp. NFL 345 says what today's Chicago Bears win in London. Caleb Williams became the fourth rookie quarterback ever with 4 or more touchdown passes and 50-plus rushing yards in a game, and now the first QB selected number 1 overall to win 4 of his first 6 career starts, like I mentioned earlier from Courtney Cronin, 4-2 Chicago Bears. I didn't realize going into the game, too, this was the first game the Bears were missing any defensive starter, and they were missing 2, Jaquan Brisker, Tyreek Stevenson. Elijah Hicks did a nice job filling in for Brisker in the secondary, playing safety, broke up a pass in the end zone, had the fumble recovery.
They're also missing a bunch of, like, that secondary for Chicago, certainly by the end of the game, was banged up. I mean, they were also missing backups in guys like Terrell Smith. They lost Kyler Gordon at some point during the game. Like, they were suddenly down to the bare bones in that secondary and still doing well.
And just to circle back to Caleb Williams a little bit, I thought this was the best he looked as far as just pure zip on the football. Now, I'm talking about that interception being about 20 yards underthrown. Other than that, that was like a
design, like a choice. Like, he intentionally put a ton of air into that for some reason and tried to drop it into a spot, and that just gave the safety all day to come in and pick it off. Whereas actually, you wanted to try and put an awful lot less arc on that and get it towards the pylon and try and fit it in there.
Yeah, it's when he tried to zip it in there. You know, a slant to Keenan Allen. A couple stick routes in between coverage, the back shoulder in the end zone that I mentioned. There was a little stick nod by Keenan Allen, right? And then he back shouldered it away from the coverage into a beautiful spot. Then he showed the touch on an end zone fade to Keenan Allen. I thought it was fantastic from Caleb Williams.
It was everything that we were wondering where it went for the first month of the season, right? Like, this is all the USC stuff, and then for the first month, you're like, where is this accuracy, the touch? Where is all the good high-level passing that we saw in college? It's just evaporated on top of him not really playing within the structure as much as, people wanted him to. And we did kind of speculate that this is the type of thing that can disappear when you're just not comfortable yet.
Yeah.
Right? And when everything is a little bit overwhelming, suddenly routine things like, can you just drop back and hit that target over there, starts to fall apart. This was the first game, I think, where he really felt comfortable, and suddenly you saw everything come back, right? This looked like USC Caleb Williams. The other thing I felt is that this felt like the sort of 8th year in a row where Jacksonville's defense just has no kind of gap integrity. Like, Caleb Williams is killing them scrambling. That's like, why are you giving him wide open running lanes to take off from the pocket and gash you for easy first downs? Like, this is every year we seem to be saying this about Jacksonville's defense. Like, not only are they underwhelming in terms of, endless sequence of first round edge rushers that never live up to the billing except Josh Hines-Allen, but they also don't rush as a collective. They also don't rush with collective gap responsibility. And anytime they face a quarterback that's capable of doing this, it's big plays left, right, and center.
Yeah, you saw it early on. Caleb Williams breaks free from a sack, has a 19-yard scramble into the red zone. I was thinking the same thing, man. Gap integrity there, and it's a new system, right? It's new everything, but the defense has been pretty bad in Jacksonville. It's been one of the league's worst.
And there was another drive, there was a drive somewhere in this game where they were like 21-10 down, and they just kept extending it with penalties. And Chicago scores a touchdown at the end of this drive that I think they had them off the field at one point and kept extending it with penalties. It's like, you're not good enough to do that, right? Like, forget the offense and its struggles and Trevor Lawrence and all that. The defense is not good enough to be giving teams free, turning a punt into a touchdown effectively by just endlessly extending their drive.
The one last thing I want to say about Caleb, well, let me follow up on that on the Jags. Also, very first play from scrimmage, Trayvon Walker, very first drop back, Trayvon Walker with a nice quick pressure. We had theorized is there a turning the corner moment in Trayvon Walker. That rush looked good. He had a negated sack after a really long.
That was a nice play as well, and negated because of 12 guys on the field.
Yes, so that was negated. Really nice rush on the first one. He had a nice rush on one of Caleb Williams' touchdowns as well. That was pretty much it, though, from Trayvon Walker. So coming off of his career game, his production looked a lot like other weeks. Again, I'm not saying he'll never figure it out, but it wasn't as clean of a narrative for us where it's like, oh, week 5, 2024, marked down, Trayvon Walker's now an elite pass rusher. You weren't necessarily getting that type of disruption this week from him. The one other Caleb Williams play I just wanted to highlight, toward the end, I feel like the two things missing from Caleb early in the season, just general accuracy and arm talent that we thought coming out of USC, and then a lot of the natural playmaking. Saw a little bit of it, but when he hit Cole Kmet on a little 3-yard dump off, this was scramble out away from pressure, eyeball the backside pressure, put a little juke on, then scramble out and dump it off to Kmet, which turned into a 20-plus yard gain. That was the closest I think we've seen to just he's feeling it, right? He's starting to feel much more comfortable, and now you're seeing him in the pocket. He's canceling reads quicker. He's zipping it in there with the type of arm talent that he has, and he's making the outside of structure play with a comfort level that we hadn't seen through the first 5 weeks.
Let's give Cole Kmet some credit. When they lost their long snapper, usually that's curtains for your ability. Like if you lose any of your specialists, which means kicker, punter / holder, and long snapper, usually that means you can no longer attempt kicks in a game, right? As crazy as that is, the NFL typically does not have people cross-trained well enough to be able to execute even an extra point to a high enough degree. When those guys go down, they're basically like, oh, I guess we're stuck going for 2 for the rest of this game. Cole Kmet stepped in and wasn't just of the ability of like, yeah, you can just about get the ball back to the holder, but it's going to jack the timing and you're probably going to get a few messed up. He was like a legit long snapper. I mean, he went 4 for 4 initially that were like dead on. The 5th one I think was a little high, and there was a blocked field goal. I don't know if it was high enough to have caused the blocked field goal or it simply occurred on the same play, but he was essentially 5 for 5 on long snaps. I was trying to dig up what his background was in terms of long snapping. Like, was he one of these guys? Because like Jared Allen was drafted as a long snapper for the Chiefs before he became one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. Some of these guys are actually long snappers previously. He told the CH Go podcast that like he joked that his career is going to be 10 to 12 years, as a tight end, and then he's going to hang it up as a tight end and just spend the next 10 years being a long snapper and extend his life in the NFL. I mean, he's legit. He can long snap.
That's impressive. Yeah, the thing that a long snapper needs to do is not just the accuracy part, but you have to get it back there in like 0.7 seconds.
Yeah, you need to be able to fire it back fast at a dead-on spot and be able to do that consistently.
It's very you have to be very consistent with it, and it's a velocity thing and accuracy thing. So yeah, it's difficult to do.
He apparently practices that like every Thursday. It's something like he stays in long snapping shape.
On Thursdays, we should add that, actually. Start long snapping on Thursdays after the show. Just to
I don't know if your
sharp.
height would be an advantage or a disadvantage for long snap.
My height's not an advantage for much in football, to be honest.
Well, that's not true.
No. Pad level, man. Pad level matters more than high point in the ball.
Depends what you're doing. Not as a wide receiver, it doesn't.
Oh, man, dude, I'd get jacked up by those strong little corners.
If you can't be like jammed at the line by a guy that's 5'10", 180.
Sure could.
No, stop that.
Sure could. Anything else on this game?
No.
All right, let's go. Indianapolis Colts and Tennessee Titans. The Colts get the win, 20-17. They move to 3-3. Titans fall to 1-4. Joe Flacco got the start again. Apologies for everybody on the preview show. We talked about Anthony Richardson. He was practicing this week. Expected him to be back.
Yeah, it was kind of a surprise.
Yeah.
Did not expect to see Flacco out there again.
So Flacco got the start, throws the game-winning touchdown to Michael Pittman in the fourth quarter to go up 20-17. On the other side, Will Levis finishes 16 of 27 for just 95 yards. That's 3.5 yards per attempt, including a fourth quarter interception. Titans finished with 146 yards on the ground and only 95 through the air. Tennessee did a really nice job running the ball, generally stopping the run, but that passing attack just don't have enough Just not enough juice to put points on the board.
Yeah, and Will Levis generally avoided the kind of utterly ridiculous meme-type catastrophe that he
No
had.
memes this time. Yeah.
Well, there were memes, but they were not really his fault, you know?
Jeez, that was a ball boy. I thought it was a ball boy that he got tackled into.
Boy in inverted commas. The guy who was like
ball
60.
Man. Ball man.
I feel like we should stop having people like that on the sideline, right? If you are old enough that you can't avoid a large person careening towards you out of control, you probably shouldn't be hanging around on an NFL sideline, you know? Controversial take, but there it is.
You're too old for the sideline.
Yeah.
Just not that close to the action.
Right. But, like, it's not like Will Levis is difficult to spot, you know? He's like 230 pounds and he's barreling straight for your knees. If you can't jump over that.
Pushed. Why did he get, like, his body got hurled like 15 yards into this dude's knee?
Right. But, like, if you can't jump over that.
Only Will Levis is going that far.
Yeah. But if you can't jump over that, you probably shouldn't be on the sideline.
I mean, when I'm on the sideline, anytime the action gets remotely close, I pictured that scenario. I don't want to be the other end of that scenario.
Right.
I'm moving early.
Moving fast.
Yes.
As fast as you can move.
Yes, and backwards,
so anyway,
far away from the action.
Levis had that where he took out a guy's knee, and he also had a ridiculous celebration, like a Spider-Man celebration after the touchdown, right? So he did have memeable things. They just weren't like memeable catastrophe plays. And honestly, big part of me was expecting one on pitchy woo-woo at the end of the game. I was kind of disappointed that was just a normal play where Will Levis didn't do anything nuts.
Sorry to disappoint.
I felt like that was his staging for like a truly spectacular, you know, what's the most absurd thing I can actually achieve on this play? Step back and watch.
So I thought yesterday was a good day for prayers into the end zone. Joe Flacco to Michael Pittman Jr., a prayer.
Joe's like genuine, just like a basketball, like alley-oop. I'm just going to lob this up there and watch what happens.
Jordan Love's, I think, was more prayerful. The second Romeo Doubs touchdown, where it was like underthrown by 10 yards, and Doubs just went back and like fair caught it and then jumped into the end zone. But that was the game winner. And for whatever reason, I'm not saying Flacco played a great game or anything, but he just gives guys the opportunity to make those plays. That was like what we kept coming out here saying all last year. Like, I don't know what it is, but all of a sudden, David Njoku's making plays for the Browns. All of a sudden, they're making these downfield plays in Cleveland that they didn't have previously.
Yeah.
Flacco's adding that to the mix here, in addition to Josh Downs just continuing to be so good. When they need a first down, he had 4 more first downs, including his touchdown. Josh Downs continues to be just such a dependable player right now for the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, Flacco to Josh Downs in this game was that was a difference between winning and losing. Alec Pierce robbed of his 150-yard bomb by a pass interference penalty, otherwise, because he ends up with 0 catches. But you got to credit him that essentially. He's behind L'Jarius Sneed deep. He's going to have another 50-yard catch, and Sneed's like, nope, not having that in my stat sheet. I'm going to make this tackle instead. So that's still functioning. Like Michael Pittman battling through that back injury, I think he had, right, where he was expected to be shut down. Not just shut down, but like people were expecting him to go into IR, and he's instead actually, no, I'm going to play through it this week.
When did that report come out? That was Thursday?
Yeah, something like that.
After the show, again, too? It was like, this could be trouble.
He'd been battling the injury for a while and was expected to head to IR, and then actually they were like, no, he's like, not only is he not going to go to IR, but he's going to play through this week.
The other thing I wanted to highlight here, the Titans, very little quick pressure from either team in here that coincided with a quick passing attack from Flacco, from Will Levis. I mean, part of what's missing with Levis, we've spoken quite a bit about the meme-type plays and the bad plays in here. But what made Levis intriguing last year was his ability to chuck it down the field. He made one of the best throws of the year last year on a throwback about 60 yards in the air. He had a few of those per game. You're not balancing that out, right?
It's not there.
Yeah, it's not there at all. So it is almost like Tennessee is trying to contain him to avoid the bad ones, right? And this is one of the trickier things. It's easy for us to say here and not always easy in like a QB room coaching this up. Because I'm sure there weren't many QB coaches being like, hey, Jameis, just be you. Just be, go nuts. Be as aggressive as you want to be. At some point, they probably tried to rein Jameis in. But what made him special was like hey, you can miss a few, you can have an interception here and there, but you're going to make up for it on the back end. Like, there's no make up for it right now with this Titans offense. Like, one of their touchdowns, a 3rd and 18 give up play in the red zone, draw play, like an old school draw play. You don't see those anymore.
Right.
And Tony Pollard takes it to the house. That's like,
great run.
Wow, thank you. Like, that would have been the difference in the game if Flacco's prayer wasn't answered, right? So
yeah, and even like so late in the game, Callahan punts on 4th and 7, where everything would tell you to go for that. And I'm pretty sure the only reason he didn't is because he just had zero confidence that Will Levis can make that play. Like, they've reached the stage where they just don't think he's just not good enough. That's right now. Will Levis is not playing remotely good enough football to be an NFL quarterback, even independent of the meme mistake plays where he did avoid that in this game. He didn't make any of those utterly ridiculous "what are you doing" play, and they still weren't good enough to get the win. Like, they must be pretty close, I think, to benching him and going with Mason Rudolph. Not that Rudolph is necessarily the future, but just because they've seen nothing from Levis yet to suggest that he is either.
Yeah, I mean, look, you and I thought Tennessee could go either way this year.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily getting great performances on the back end like they would hope, but they're stout up front against the run. The pass rush is negligible, right? They're one of the worst pass rush teams in the NFL. Like, there's some improvement needed on Tennessee's side. But Mason Rudolph, in this world where just coming in and running the offense and spreading the ball around to some dudes who can catch it,
Yeah.
Hopkins and Ridley and Boyd, the backs out of the backfield, like there's better offense to be had in Tennessee. And so I am curious if we do see Mason Rudolph at some point.
Yeah, like the offensive line is still not good, but the running game is. The receivers should be better than we're seeing so far. And it does feel like right now Levis is the cap on this thing.
For the Colts, 3-3, I expect to see Anthony Richardson next week, right?
Yeah.
He should be back. Again, they only scored 20 points in this game, but with no Jonathan Taylor, the run game has been far more inconsistent. I am intrigued by all the playmakers. Josh Downs being uncoverable, what Pittman's able to do, the Alec Pierce deep ball that, again, he didn't get in this game, but you have those opportunities each week. I think the Colts have some opportunities to put points on the board.
They're in not a tough spot, but it's going to be an interesting dynamic where when they do go back to Anthony Richardson, knowing that probably is going to make them worse. Like, Flacco, I think, is a better quarterback for them right now.
To me, this is a different situation where, like, Will Levis hasn't shown anything this year that you want to build upon. Anthony Richardson is so young and inexperienced as a college and NFL quarterback. You're going back to him, and there's been enough flashes in Anthony Richardson's game. Plus, he adds the run game element. Plus, in any given week, he can go 8 carries for 70 yards, design run game, scrambles. Got to protect him now. Don't want him taking those hits. But the Colts have to go back to Anthony Richardson, where the Titans might be at this point where, hey, we might need to move on from Will Levis.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do anything else, but it's an unusual you're making a quarterback switch knowing that it will make you worse, probably.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a possibility here. Anything else there?
No.
All right, Houston Texans and New England Patriots. Texans move to 5-1, 41-21 win over the Patriots. Patriots fall to 1-5. As I mentioned earlier, they're going to go play the 1-5 Jags in London this week. Houston, though, they get Joe Mixon back. He didn't do much early, but a 59-yarder and then a beautiful late touchdown. So I thought Mixon finally found his groove. Titans almost ran for 200 yards on the ground. And C.J. Stroud pinpoint early on. And then you have Drake May's debut for the New England Patriots, which I think was far more positive than negative. So what were your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, so it kind of went along the lines of expectations, I think, which is Drake May did provide a spark to the offense. I mean, they were more productive than he'd been previously. He did, however, kind of get beat up behind that line, and you're like, I still don't know if it's a good thing playing him the rest of the way. Like, Houston, they won by 20 points. I think that kind of flattered the Patriots, to be honest. Like, they should have gone up 21-0 to start the game, and who knows what the result would have gotten to if that had been the actual result. And then, Drake May's biggest impact play in the game was that perfect touchdown to Kayshon Boutte, who beat Derek Stingley deep. Like, really nice play by Boutte, to be honest. Like,
stacked him late.
Stacked him and, like, hand fought to sort of get position on it. Like, just a really, really nice play against a high-end corner. Like,
LSU on LSU crime, even.
Yeah, Drake May will get all the sort of headlines for that play, but that pass was made by what Butte did to get position on a really good corner and make that touchdown. Like, this is a guy who has really done nothing in the NFL so far in terms of Butte against a corner that is trying to sort of become one of the very best in the NFL. Just a clean win for Butte to give Drake May the window to put that ball. Perfect location from him. But like one massive high leverage play, makes that game a little bit closer than I think it really was. And we did see like just this absolute consistent beatdown, in particular from Will Anderson against everybody that the Patriots are trotting out there. Janelle Hunter had a really clean win and a strip sack as well. Like, he was getting beat up quite a lot. And I'm like, what's the net result of that over the next 10 games?
May got blindsided on that one strip sack that you mentioned. He got hit hard a few times. The percentage of pressures will not come out extremely high because there was a lot of quick passing in there for New England to kind of offset that. But when the pressure came, it was really, it came quickly. And then when Vidarian Lowe, who's coming off of his career best game the previous week, the starting left tackle, he went down, got replaced by Zach Thomas, who's mostly more of a guard than a tackle. And at that point, the Patriots signed Ben Brown off the Raiders practice squad to start at center, right? So Drake May's first start, they had Ben Brown at center, DeMontre Jacobs at tackle, Zach Thomas at tackle after about, a handful of snaps from Vidarian Lowe. Those three players had fewer than 100 career NFL snaps. So at one point, 60% of the Patriots' offensive line had fewer than 100 career snaps each. I don't think I've ever seen a line that experienced. And the Patriots were mostly functional on offense. They had there was some fluky turnovers in there too. There was an Austin Hooper fumble in there. Drake May's first interception, absolutely airmailed, bad pass. Second interception, Will Anderson makes a great play there. He was just a game wrecker in this one.
Yeah.
He bats the pass. It tips up right to the Texans defender who caught it for an interception. So there were some fluky plays in there as well. So yeah, like the pressure thing, it wasn't like the walls were caving in on all 45 dropbacks from Drake May. They didn't cave in. It was just like dudes got wrecked up front and he had no chance on certain plays. And then other times they were able to hold up enough for him to get the ball down the field.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that he probably does give them a better chance than Jacoby Brissett, that he does provide more, that he will spark that offense. The question is simply, is it a net win to expose him to 10 games plus of that kind of treatment?
Yeah, it's still a fair question. As far as the actual performance from May, again, I thought accuracy was a little hit or miss. The interception early on, some of the short area stuff, similar questions about that. He was the leading rusher for the Patriots. You saw his athleticism, his ability to make plays with his legs. He had the in-stride deep ball. Again, inconsistent, right? His staple throw for me at North Carolina was any sort of those in-breakers, any of those middle-of-the-field throws. He missed a hot read on that, little high on another one that was caught, and then all of a sudden puts it right on Demario Douglas, who catches it and runs it for a long touchdown. And you saw some of the natural playmaking in Drake May, similar to that Caleb Williams discussion. Scramble drill, draws in the defense and hits Hunter Henry for a 30-yarder. So a lot of good, some inconsistency, but I think it was more positive than negative, I think, for May, given the circumstances. And Butte had the most snaps of any receiver. Interesting evaluation coming out of LSU. I thought he was had a lot of potential on tape, but the production wasn't always there. He'll be somebody to watch. And I thought May helped unlock Demario Douglas, who I think is a fantastic, tough to cover slot with after the catch ability. We saw that yesterday. That's Drake May's game. I do think New England put Drake May in position to succeed play calling wise. Like, they started to lean into some of the stuff that he does well. So again, I thought more good than bad from Drake May, but a difficult situation to produce every single week.
Yeah. From Houston's perspective, they were able to keep on going with no Nico Collins. Like, Tank Dell stepped up, Stephon Diggs stepped up, the two guys that need to step up if you take away effectively their number one wide receiver, and they kept on taking.
They did, man. Some of the Stephon Diggs route on that touchdown against Christian Gonzalez and C.J. Stroud. Stroud was interesting. I thought there was some open dig routes that he was just low on. They completed, but he was low, and then he was throwing some outside the numbers passes, outcut to Diggs early on. That was just absolutely pinpoint. We talk about arm talent a lot. Stroud has that ability with where he's got like his follow through gets cut short. It looks like he shouldn't be able to get much on the ball, and he just kind of flicks it, and he throws some just absolute darts on passes that look easy for him, like an easy throwing motion. I thought he had a few of those in this game. One thing I'm sad that we forgot to mention was the Tank Dell versus Marcus Jones matchup. Two of our favorite players, undersized, and they had some pretty good battles back and forth. Marcus Jones had that tipped interception that you mentioned earlier that just kind of landed in his hands, but that was what kind of kept New England in the game early on.
Yeah, in the end zone, right? Like the Texans were a tipped pass that it resulted in an interception away from being 3 touchdowns to the good right away at the start of this game.
Yeah. And the one other thing I mentioned, Joe Mixon, Damian Pierce also had a really nice long 54-yard touchdown as well.
Where he was just swatting away endless Patriots tackle attempts, like sequentially one after the other, like stiff arm, hand down, like 4 guys bounce off him.
We hadn't seen Mixon play since week 2.
And Pierce been banged up as well.
And Pierce had been banged up. I mean, it brings a little bit of balance to the Texans' offense. They can run it better than they have these last couple weeks. And as you mentioned, with Nico Collins down, it's like, okay, we can rely on Stephon Diggs a little bit more. We can rely on Tank Dell a little bit more. My favorite part of the Houston Texans is the depth that they've built and their ability to win in different ways. And I think they showed that again. They're certainly a better team than New England, but they won it in, pretty dominant fashion here, as they should as a 5-1 team.
Yep. Nothing
else here?
Nope.
All right, let's go Philadelphia Eagles and Cleveland Browns. Eagles get the win 20-16 over the Browns. Eagles move to 3-2. Browns fall to 1-5.
Yeah.
I feel like we need sad music for all the Deshaun Watson Cleveland Browns stats.
The trombone sound?
Yeah, sad trombone for how bad the Browns offense is.
Michael Strahan apparently delivered a stat on the halftime Fox show that Deshaun Watson was 0 for his last 25 third downs. I know that got to at least 26 before I think he completed the next one. That's absolutely ridiculous. 26 straight third down failures for a guy.
Real?
Yes, for a guy you're paying $230 million guaranteed to.
What were they last week against the Commanders? Let's see here. They really didn't convert. Yeah. They were 1 for 13 as a team, so I assume one of them was probably rushing. Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah.
The whole thing's bad.
I mean, it's not just bad. It's utterly abysmal. Like, it's one of the worst quarterback situations in years, and unlike the other ones, they are tied to him unlike any team has ever been tied to a quarterback before.
All right.
Like it's getting extremely toxic because after every one of these performances, the questions immediately go to Kevin Stefanski. So, are we still sticking with Deshaun Watson? And he's now just resorting to sort of single word responses. Like, yes, he is still our quarterback, that kind of thing, right? And it's not going to get any better. If you look at their schedule, it's actually been relatively kind up until this point, certainly in terms of pass defenses that they faced. And it's getting relatively difficult. So if they're genuinely like bolted to this guy and we refuse to make any kind of change going forward, this could get all-time terrible. And Mitchell Trubisky was pointing out yesterday.
Hold on. Schwartz?
Yes. Trubisky? Maybe Mitchell Trubisky was pointing out as well to his friends. But Mitchell
Schwartz, Trubisky was looking down at Deshaun Watson's performance because it's so much better than his.
I did see there was one of those memes that, like, Johnny Manziel is smiling somewhere because he's no longer the worst quarterback decision that the Browns have made. There's a bunch of these memes actually as well. Another one is that right now Watson has basically worse numbers than a guy who admitted to watching 0 tape in the NFL at any point in his life. That's the kind of level we're at the moment. Mitchell Schwartz was pointing out that this is very unfair to everybody else in that locker room, right? We are refusing steadfastly to even acknowledge that we might look into making a quarterback change, which means guys like Myles Garrett, who's battling through multiple injuries, playing hurt and still balling out, jumping over lines and making block kicks, right?
The only reason why this was even close, by the way.
Joel Bitonio out there battling through, everything that an offensive lineman is battling through on a daily basis. Like, these guys are out here putting their bodies on the line for a team that is deliberately not trying to do their best to win because they don't want to look bad, because they've made this commitment to a guy they shouldn't have made it to, and they're now suffering through it. Like, this is a bad thing to be doing to a locker room who presumably has only a certain amount of patience with that.
So, to be fair, all of the efficiency metrics that we're talking about, I do feel like are more team-driven. But either way, it's not all on Deshaun Watson, but there's
a connection, right?
Of course.
It's like the Flacco thing. There's something to this idea that when you put Flacco in the offense, on a throw-by-throw basis, his performance might not actually be that much better than Deshaun Watson or Anthony Richardson, but the overall performance of the offense is different, right? On a play-by-play, throw-by-throw basis, Deshaun Watson might not be quite as bad as his all-time wretched statistics suggest, but it's pretty clear that putting him in this offense leads to one of the worst offenses that the NFL has ever produced.
No, I know. The offensive line's bad. They're not doing anything well up front. Watson's horrendous. I like to read. Let's go read Austin Gale's Twitter. We need a whole segment where we just go read Austin Gale's Twitter.
Okay, go on.
So here's this one. Jamarcus Russell lost negative 63.8 total EPA on dropbacks in weeks 1 through 6 back in 2009. It was the record low since it was the record low since at least 2000 before Deshaun Watson. Negative 66.2 this season.
And remember, Jamarcus Russell also famously not a tape watcher, to the point where they tried to
not a tape watcher.
They sent him tapes, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I watched them," and they were blank.
What you're talking about with the locker room stuff, right? I feel like I'm sure the Raiders locker room at the time was like, "Man, Jamarcus can't play." I don't know if you guys have seen this, but Jamarcus just can't play. We need Bruce Gradkowski out there, right? Like they probably didn't feel great about that. The discussion in New England this year, where Jacoby Brissett in this terrible offense in New England, and it's like, when do you go to the kid? When do you go to the kid? You're going to lose the locker room and all that discussion. But those are different discussions, because you have to sit there and maybe take your lumps with a Jamarcus Russell and hope that he figures it out, or you have to sit Drake May until he's ready so that he doesn't get killed by the offensive line, because you have a future that you're hoping for.
It's unprecedented.
The difference here, though, is this is the guy that you picked and paid a ton of guaranteed money to, and keep pushing the guaranteed money into the future.
And are contractually stuck with, unlike any quarterback ever. Like, that's the thing. This is genuinely unprecedented, because nobody has ever tied themselves so tightly and for such a long time to a quarterback. But it's a sunk cost. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't change anything. Yeah, it's a terrible situation. It's a little bit like the Panthers with Bryce Young, right? The chances of anything good coming from this, once you have sat Bryce Young down, are fairly minimal. You still have to do it. There's no good. It's just, what's the least bad thing that can happen? That's where Cleveland is right now. There is no good. It's only what is the least bad you can do. And the least bad thing you can do is admit you screwed it up, sit the guy down, and give the ball to Jameis and say, "Hey, Jameis, go nuts." Like, you just go out there and sling the ball around, see what happens. One more sad stat from Field Yates this time. The Browns have now become the first team in 10 years to score under 20 points in each of their first 6 games this season. Cleveland has now scored once in its last 29 drives.
Wow.
That's not great.
I mean, whether you're using EPA, actual points, it's all bad.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to Austin's.
Okay.
I mean, he's just got these fired up. Austin must be making
and again
tens of dollars from Twitter just off these tweets alone.
Just to reiterate, they have had a fairly easy schedule up until this point, and it gets fairly hard. Whatever we're saying right now.
They have the Chiefs down the road and the Ravens twice off the top of my head.
And the Steelers twice, and the Chargers, who now have one of the best pass defenses in the NFL. It basically, outside of 2 games against Cincinnati, which could go either way.
I kind of want this to play out.
That's what I'm saying. It gets hard from this point on. So every number that we're saying right now, which is all-time bad, is skewed positive by the fact that they've had a relatively easy schedule.
All right, I just need to see. I'm gonna read all of them. I'm gonna go down Austin Gale's timeline. I had this one fired up, and then I'm just gonna go down the timeline because people need to know these.
How many does he have?
I don't know, but there's a lot. Bottom 8 drop back success rates, weeks 1 through 6. Deshaun Watson is number 734 out of 741. So there are a few guys worse. We have David Carr, Mark Bulger, presumably at the end of his career, where the part you always reference.
It's
broken
David
Mark
Carr's
Bulger
in there as well. Broken Mark, broken David.
But these are like special levels of first-round quarterback busts, too. Josh Rosen, Akili Smith, poor Jay Fiedler, Blaine Gabbert, and Jamarcus Russell. That's
That must have been broken Jay Fiedler as well.
probably broken because Jay was good before that.
So it's all-time bust quarterbacks and guys that were broken at the end of their careers by bad offensive lines.
Since, Bill Barnwell, since 2007, 566 quarterbacks have thrown at least 100 passes in the first 6 games of their team's respective seasons. First downs per pass attempt. Bo Nix, catching strays in this tweet, Deshaun Watson tweet. Bo Nix is tied for 564th. 22% of his passes have gone for first downs. And Deshaun Watson is dead last. 566, 22.1% of his passes have gone for first downs.
I do think now that the most sort of prescient part of all this is the locker room part, the Mitchell Schwartz element of it. Like,
I'm not done.
No, we can't spend the next hour reading off crappy Deshaun Watson
We sure
stats.
can.
Like at some point,
One more.
go on then. What's your one more?
Bottom 12 quarterbacks in EPA per dropback just since last year. So I'll give you the bottom 5. Number 27 in the league out of 31 qualifiers per his tweet here. Will Levis, then Daniel Jones, then Deshaun Watson. So he's third worst. Then Zach Wilson and Bryce Young.
Mm-hmm.
Guys who, of course, had to lose their jobs because they were so bad. Zach Wilson and Bryce Young. At least lose their jobs and regroup elsewhere.
I mean, at this point, there is zero justification for keeping him as the starter that doesn't involve sunk costs.
In summation, Deshaun Watson-led offense right now is at the level of the biggest first-round, I hate using the word bust, but busts, failed former first-round quarterbacks. Deshaun Watson-led Browns offense is at that level right now.
He's basically playing the way Bryce Young played, which was enough to make Carolina give up on him 2 games into the season, go to Andy Dalton in a move that was raising the white flag and saying this guy's career here is basically over now and we have no alternative. Like, we don't have a future. We don't have a guy waiting in the wings. We are basically saying this was a mistake and all we can do now is surrender, but it's the right call because he's given us no choice. It's a different dynamic. The contract is different, but it's basically the same thing. They gave up on this guy 2 games into the season, and there was probably a greater chance, like he's young, he's very inexperienced. The Browns are in the same situation, but they refuse to acknowledge that reality. And I think a big reason Carolina did that is because the rest of the team was like, we can't keep doing this. Like, you've got to go away from this kid, sad though it is, and turn the keys over to Andy Dalton. The Browns have got to be in that situation now where the rest of that locker room is like, enough. Give it to somebody else. I don't care who. It just can't be this guy anymore.
Anything else on the Browns and their futility?
Again,
Tyler's
other than to say it's going to get worse.
Tyler's calling for mercy in there.
Yeah.
They played the Eagles.
They did.
And for Eagles fans here, you got A.J. Brown back, Devontae Smith back. You saw the long touchdown from Devontae Smith on the catch and run. And then A.J. Brown, I think that was kind of underthrown. And A.J. Brown is so good at...
Did it twice.
Yeah. I mean, the other... You had one deep ball caught, not for a touchdown. The touchdown in particular, though, the ability to just keep the cornerback shielded, catch the ball, hold on to it with one hand, and finish the catch, just completely changes this offense. I'm telling you, like, if A.J. Brown wasn't on the field yesterday with those 2 big throws, I mean, we're talking about the Eagles offense maybe being in a similar territory as the Browns. And if the Browns didn't have, of course, the Browns had that blocked field goal for a touchdown that kept them in it, but Eagles offense wasn't great outside of a few big plays.
No, A.J. Brown is so good at, I mean, there's so many different ways for a wide receiver to win on these plays, but he is so good at easing up and stacking the corner and just boxing him out of those deep balls so that he doesn't have to turn around and moss the guy and go up and high point it. but he's not waiting for it to arrive in his hands and it being wildly underthrown either. He's varying his pace and effectively stopping himself and the corner and then letting it get in and turning it into a sort of slightly contested situation, but not a really badly contested situation. Like, he's so good at that, which is a really kind of underrated element of being a kind of really good wide receiver deep down the field. Randy Moss, obviously Moss became like a verb, right? And we think the verb sort of to moss somebody is to go up over the top, take the ball away from the top. But Randy Moss, the reason he's one of the greatest wide receivers of all time is he could do that, or he could run right past you, or he was also really good at this, where he would stop. He would slow you up, he would box you out, and then at the last second, he would take that half step forward and extend himself and catch what looks like a perfectly thrown pass, but actually wouldn't have been if he'd kept running, right? A.J. Brown, same thing. If A.J. Brown keeps running full speed on both those deep shots, the ball looks fairly dramatically underthrown, and we're like, quarterback missed him twice. Instead, he turns both of them into really big plays.
Yeah, so A.J. Brown finishes with 116 yards on 6 catches. Devontae Smith, 64 yards, including the 45-yard touchdown. It was a strange game. There weren't a lot of plays in the red zone. Jalen Hurts had 5 first-down conversions, I think, all on the tush-push. So it was kind of like a quick game, and Eagles needed their big-time playmakers to make their plays.
Yeah.
And they did a pretty good job up front against that woeful Browns offensive line.
Yes. They were winning pretty handily. I mean, again, this game ends up reasonably close, but it's all because Myles Garrett individually leapt clean over an offensive line to block a kick, and the Browns returned it for a touchdown. That was, I mean, he didn't take a run at that. I don't think I've ever seen that before, where normally those guys are the linebackers, where they sort of take a run at it and leap over the line. Myles Garrett leapt out of his stance over the line of scrimmage cleanly.
Yeah, he's insane.
And then blocked the kick. I don't know that I've seen that before.
We had to spend a little time on that one, but that's it. You have no more use for that game or the Browns. For this week at least. Green Bay Packers 34, Arizona Cardinals 13. Packers move to 4-2. Cardinals fall to 2-4. You took the Kyler Murray more than on his
rushing yards.
On his rushing yards, and you were sad about the Cardinals and all their fumbles,
which I think had a very good chance of coming in. He had 7 rushing attempts for 14 yards. So, I mean, the Packers defense was doing a really good job of bottling Arizona up, let alone Kyler Murray. Evan Williams, in particular, had 2 really huge plays in this game. There was a 3rd and short, I think, where the Cardinals, again, are they going to tap into Kyler Murray's cheat code ability as a scrambler and a runner? And they did. They gave him like a read option, right? And Lucas Van Ness, I think, was straight to the running back. So Kyler correctly read that, was like, I'm going to keep it. He's one-on-one with Evan Williams on 3rd and short. Like, he only has to get a yard. And Williams took him down, made it look easy. Didn't give up any yardage, made the stop, ends up killing the play. Williams also had another one of those peanut punches later in the game.
You're stealing my notes here, Sam.
Forces the fumble. Phenomenal 2 game-changing plays by Evan Williams. But they were tapping into this Kyler Murray rushing and scrambling ability. And I do feel that if he'd had more plays on offense, he would have got another 20 yards from somewhere. Instead, Arizona kept finding a way of fumbling the ball away.
Yeah, that the second straight week now, Evan Williams, last week was his first NFL start. This week, those 2 big plays that you mentioned, that tackle on the keeper on 3rd and 1 was outstanding. It was 17-0 at the time. So Arizona's trying to get back into the game, get anything going, stops their drive.
Pause the game or pause the tape at that point. It was like Kyler Murray's one-on-one with a guy in space. What's happening here? Like, easy first down.
It was a great play. So I had that in my notes as well. Edgerrin Cooper, another nice game. The other rookie, second-round linebacker for the Packers. He played a career-high 38 snaps. He made a few nice plays in the run game. Nice, tackles for short gain and coverage. Made some nice plays there. High level, looking at Arizona, Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't catch a pass. He left early with a concussion. So that hurts from an Arizona perspective. And every single time I start to I feel bad for Cardinals fans because I feel like I'm just so negative toward Arizona every single week. I don't trust them. I just don't trust them every week. And as soon as I give them a little bit of trust, as soon as I say, hey, Jonathan Gannon's got these boys playing. He's got these guys playing hard. And then they come out and they have a tough game like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to give a lot of credit to that Green Bay defense. They were doing a really good job. They were stifling everything Arizona was bringing to the table. Their job was made harder when Marvin Harrison goes down, but like that defense did a really good job in this game. So I think you have to credit them to some degree. I think you're right that Arizona is very hit or miss. You know, they're going to have these big games. They're going to have bad performances as well. This was one of the bad ones. It was made look even worse by the fumbles, the fact that they kept giving the ball up. It wasn't as close, I think, as it ended up being. Like Bo Melton slipped over, causing an interception on an otherwise perfect pass, you know? So that, like, Arizona was given opportunities as well, and just they weren't close enough in this game.
Jordan Love, with 4 touchdown passes in this one, bombed to Christian Watson, which was nice. Again, I think you got to see the variety of the Packers receiving core. Watson with the big play, Romeo Doubs with 2 touchdowns. The second one, the one I mentioned earlier, the kind of a prayer from Jordan Love, underthrown. Doubs comes back to it, catches it, gets into the end zone. Jaden Reed with a touchdown catch as well. So you got to see the variety of playmakers from Green Bay there. So Love with the 4 touchdowns, 1 pick, as you mentioned, probably not on him with Melton falling over. Pretty effective run game for Green Bay as well. So I think, you know, maybe just starting to find their groove. Love getting back into the groove over these last couple weeks too after the injury. And remember, the Packers didn't get good, really good, until around Thanksgiving last year. So they're setting themselves up here at 4-2 to make a run.
Both of Romeo Doubs' touchdown catches, were pretty ridiculous. Jordan Love also got Arizona repeatedly in this game with hard counts. It's classic Aaron Rodgers. A hard count, make him jump offside, get the free 5 yards.
Last week was the falling over pick 6 homage to Brett Favre.
Yeah.
This week is the hard count homage to Aaron Rodgers. Jordan Love is a perfect mix between his 2 predecessors.
At least 3 of them, I think, in this game. Like proper Aaron Rodgers. Like that's one of the things that Rodgers has been great at throughout his entire NFL career. And Jordan Love was getting the Cardinals multiple times in this game.
I didn't have much else on this one.
All right.
I had a lot of notes on Deshaun Watson and how bad they were. I didn't have much else on Cardinals Packers. Anything else stand out for you?
That's pretty much it.
Good. That's all we got. Got no more use for that game. This episode is brought to you by Manscaped, the global leader in men's lifestyle and grooming. We got to introduce something new, Manscaped's newest innovation. It's the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver, the game-changing tool that brings the luxury of a professional shave right into your home. Whether you're after that daily silky smooth finish, not me necessarily, or prefer what I like, the rugged 5 o'clock shadow, Sam, the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver is your go-to for precision and style every single time. So head over to manscaped.com. Join the over 11 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by using code MIKE20 for 20% off plus free shipping. Mike20, MIC20. So what makes the Chairman Pro stand out? Well, it's all about the versatility and precision. It comes with 2 interchangeable skin-safe blade heads, and you have the skin-safe 4-blade foil for that close, smooth shave when you're looking to be completely clean. And if a clean shave isn't your style, that's okay. Just switch to the skin-safe stubble trimmer. Let's try this again. Reset. Ready? If a clean shave isn't your style, that's okay. Just switch to the skin-safe stubble trimmer to keep your stubble looking sharp and polished. That's my go-to there, Sam. Keep the stubble. Keep the stubble. I don't want it too silky smooth. So I love that you have options here with the Chairman Pro. So you can get the Chairman Pro today. Experience a shave that is as smooth as you deserve. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code Mike20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping. Code is Mike20 at manscaped.com.
You ever find that there are just certain sequences of words you're physically incapable of saying?
Yeah, that's one of them.
Yeah.
I'll get better. We'll get better with time.
I discovered years ago when we were doing our little preview videos in the closet over there that I am simply physically incapable of stringing together the 2 words rivalry week.
Oh, rivalry week.
I have to that took effort to sort of slow it down physically, step by step, like a baby walking, like a toddler stepping it out. Cannot say those 2 words back to back.
This week was Red River Rivalry.
Yeah, I know
right?
it was.
Red River Rivalry.
And I know that because that's what prompted me to go, Can I say that? No, I still can't do that. Still can't say those 2 words.
Yeah, that was back when we were doing a ton of college football videos and you needed a host. And it's like, all right, let's talk rivalry week.
So it just comes out as rivalry week.
Yeah, rivalry week for 15 takes from Sam here.
Mm-hmm.
Tampa Bay Bucks and New Orleans Saints. This is a wild one. Saints win 51. No, Bucks win.
Yeah.
You said that too. Bucks win 51-27. Bucks move to 4-2, and Saints fall to 2-4. Their fourth straight loss. Incredible back and forth game in this one.
Yeah. Can't say rugby week, but can say clean old-fashioned hate between the hedges and the peach state.
Wow, you're so good at that. That was great. That Georgia, that was the best video we ever did for college.
Anyway,
Georgia Tech, 2018 game preview. Sam nailed the intro like that.
Yeah.
Still can do it.
This game was weird.
Sure was.
Really weird. The sequence of scoring in this game was completely insane.
Do you want me to cover it real quick?
Sure.
Bucks got up 17-0.
Yep.
Very quickly. One of those touchdowns was a fumble, scoop and score, fumble recovery for the Bucks. So it's 17-0. Saints creep back into it. A punt return for a touchdown gets them back in, so it's 17-10. Rashid Shaheed, of course. Eventually, the Saints take a 20-17 lead. Bucks go back up 24-20. Saints take the lead again, 27-24.
And that was halftime, right?
27-24 at halftime.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield had like 32 dropbacks.
So they went. So Tampa Bay was 17-0 up, and then they're trailing 24-27 at the half.
Yes, and then the
what
Saints
happens?
didn't score again.
Yeah.
So the Bucks scored the last however many points, 27. What is that? Is it 27? Don't make me do the math on the fly when you have to carry numbers. 27 unanswered in the second half to win 51-27.
Yeah,
Did you get all that?
I did. That's a crazy sequence of scoring. The Saints also managed to go. I think Dan Hans has pointed this out. They scored 27 points only, all in the second quarter.
Well, yeah, that's nuts.
Right?
Yeah, that's
They
wild.
only scored in the second quarter, but they scored 27 points in the second
They
quarter.
sure did. So the punt return for a touchdown. Baker Mayfield finished with 3 picks. The first one was bad. That was part of what kept them or got the Saints back into the game. Then there was batted pass interceptions. There was some ugly, some unlucky interceptions there that the Saints took advantage of. That's so funny. What happened now? What did we do?
Ben Allen. I assume this is relevant to not being able to say words.
Oh, no.
Ben Allen posting an awful
No.
announcing link
Monson.
saying NFL Network's Jane Slater is the latest to accidentally say bulging dick whilst trying to say bulging disc.
Yeah,
That's unfortunate.
sure is.
That's worse than Bumblebee Week. Different, but worse.
Bucks scored 27 unanswered points, Sam. Could you stay?
They did. They scored 27 unanswered points.
Bulging disc is a tough one to say. You don't want to say that.
I mean, you got to pay attention when that's out there.
Yeah. Luckily, we're not reporters. We don't have to do that.
That's true. Never.
Bucks' run game was incredible in
Yeah.
this game.
I mean, certainly that Bucky Irving run was pretty ridiculous.
So they had no Rashad White. Sean Tucker comes in, runs for 136 on 14 carries and a score. Bucky Irving, 81 yards. Sean Tucker did it more from, I don't know. I mean, Bucky Irving forced 9 missed tackles, I believe it was. Is that right? Or did I switch up who it was? They were both.
Half of them on that one play.
Yeah. I'm calling it the Bucky Quake. Do we have the Bucky Quake?
The Bucky Quake?
Yeah.
Why was
The
it
Beast
a quake?
Because it kind of ran through the defense.
Yeah, but the whole point of the quake is it caused a seismic event
Look
in
at this.
Seattle.
Missed tackle,
1, 2,
stiff arm,
3,
missed tackle,
4,
missed tackle,
5.
missed tackle, juke,
Yeah, that doesn't
poor
work.
Cameron Jordan falling over. It's quakish. It's about as quakish as you're going to get for a 5'7" running back or whatever he is.
Marshawn Lattimore did a really good job there, beating 2 downfield blocks once the play had gone all the way back to his side to eventually force him out. Because Baker Mayfield appears from nowhere trying to make that block.
Look at the stiff arm.
And he'd actually done the hard work, got himself into position, and then Lattimore beats the block of the quarterback and makes the play. Incredible run, though.
Is that Jonathan
Utterly
Abram
insane.
just got stiff arm to the turf?
Yeah. Crazy play by Irving. I mean, both running backs look spectacular in this game. They each carried the ball, I think, 14 times. Both of them looked amazing. Bucky Irving, again, predominantly on that one run, but was also good outside of that. Sean Tucker with number 44 looking like Ahmad Bradshaw out there, just making plays.
Ahmad Bradshaw.
Yeah.
That's because he's number 44.
Yeah, and small. Small and stumpy. We're number 44.
It's a good comparison.
Parallels couldn't be more clear.
The Saints' tackling was horrendous
Yes.
overall. Chris Godwin also ran through the defense for a 50-plus yard touchdown. I think that was the one that put the Saints up. Was that the one that put the Saints up for good? Probably. Come on, man. I clicked off, and I got to – yeah, that was the game winner. Put them up 31-27, then they just kept going. Mayfield, another up and down game, right? He ends up with 4 touchdowns, 3 picks. I think 2 of them weren't really on him.
Yeah.
Probably should have had another one before halftime. And then he's got just those, scrambles where he's moving the chains, breaking free from sacks, got injured briefly. Looked like it could have been a turning point in the game because he dives for a first down. He's inches short, comes out injured. The Bucs probably would have gone for it if he wasn't hurt. It was 4th and inches. They end up punting. They could have easily put Kyle Trask in just to QB sneak and keep the drive going, but they didn't.
Especially because he's a big fella, Kyle Trask, right?
Yeah, he's a big guy, 6'4", 6'5".
Yeah.
But you don't want to run the QB sneak cold right off the sideline, do you?
Why not?
I mean, teams have QB sneak specialists. I'm sure you could do it fine.
Right. Jacoby Brissett can do it.
Again, it looked like a turning point in the game, but Spencer Rattler on the other side, the Saints offense just couldn't capitalize. As you mentioned, they only scored in that one quarter, and it was on short fields and punt returns for touchdowns. So they were inconsistent offensively. But Mayfield, as I was saying, again, comes back into the game, bounces back, sticks in there with a nice touchdown to Cade Otton later in the game. I mean, they just Mayfield gritting it out, man. And battling through injury and finding a way to overcome what felt like could be some of those back-breaking turnovers. And the Bucs end up with almost 600 yards of offense. And so all this stuff is adding up. Yeah, the Saints have lost Taysom Hill and offensive linemen, and Spencer Rattler's in there making his first start. But their defense, I was not expecting their defense to be this bad. This is one of the worst defensive outings of any team this year. They had the turnovers kept them in it. The defense did that, but those are kind of fluky. The Saints got beat up.
Yeah, I mean, they got absolutely annihilated. Obviously, the run game was crushing, but they couldn't really cover anybody either, except Mike Evans, who did go less than his prize picks projection. One of the 3 that I got right.
If I told you on Thursday, hey,
put up 600 yards of offense, and Mike Evans went less than his
600 yards of offense, and Marshawn Lattimore is not going to shadow him the whole time. We're going to have a lot of Paulson Adebo matchups.
Yeah.
I mean, Adebo's a pretty good corner, but
it's not Marshawn Lattimore.
It's not Marshawn Lattimore. Why did the Saints, mix it up?
Yeah. Anywho, Rattler played pretty well.
Yeah, there was some good stuff in there.
Yeah.
Expound.
I mean, he was pretty impressive. It was a little bit like Drake May, right? It wasn't perfect. There was some bad in there as well. But overall, a lot more, again, positive than negative for him, given the situation, which is not amazing anymore.
Yeah, he had 2 interceptions, both in the fourth quarter. I think the biggest one's beginning of the fourth quarter, kind of underthrows it. Zion McCollum with another. I mean,
that was a really good interception.
It wasn't like a bad decision. He just underthrew it, and Zion McCollum goes up and is athletic and makes the play.
But it's one of those ones. It's not far underthrown. It's just that's one of those plays where in college that's a completion, and in the NFL defenders are freaky.
Yeah.
And McCollum is specifically freaky in terms of one of the most ridiculous athletes that's ever come into the league at the cornerback position. It is underthrown, but that's one of those ones where you sort of learn very quickly as a young quarterback just what NFL defenders are capable of.
Yeah. Second one was pretty bad. He just misread the curl flat defender. It was late in the fourth quarter, but he just kind of threw it right to Tyke Smith. Game was mostly over at that point. It was 44-27. But yeah, some positives in there from Spencer Rattler. I think as I saw someone else say, if Derek Carr was the quarterback in this game, I don't know if anything is all that much different.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's true. And again, didn't necessarily have, certainly didn't have the starting 5 offensive linemen that they would have wanted to start the season. Another guy, interesting, both the rookie quarterbacks that were thrown into it this week, both dealing with not just backup centers, but guys that arrived fairly recently. They wouldn't, not even, sometimes it might be okay if you had the backup center, but the guy that you've been playing with the whole time with the scout team or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That could be okay. But these are both backup centers that arrived fairly in the last couple of weeks with the team. So it's not like they've had a ton of reps just with the exchange, the quarterback center snap.
Just to touch on Sean Tucker again really quick. Career high in snaps. He had not played a lot of football. He's a very good player at Syracuse. I think he fell in the draft, went undrafted because of a heart issue, if I remember correctly. I think he was expected to go higher, 2023 NFL draft, and he was good, man. I'm a Rashad White fan. I don't think he's a great natural runner. I think he's a better receiver than runner. This is going to be interesting because Bucky Irving has earned all of his carries. Rashad White was still kind of splitting carries with Bucky Irving. If it's only one game, but if Tucker keeps this up, you might have a situation where Tucker and Bucky are handling most of the carries, and Rashad White is more of a pass-catching back.
Right.
Because in one game, man, Tucker was really sharp.
I mean, you're right. It is one game, and who knows if that maintains. But certainly based off that game, Rashad White is the third best running back they have. And he's the starter and the guy getting the bulk of the workload. So now he might be the best receiving back, which, as you say, could make all three of them coexist. But based off that evidence, they definitely need to redistribute the workload a bit.
So the Bucs moved to 4-2. Falcons are also 4-2. Falcons have the tiebreaker at the moment. I believe there's a great Week 7 match. Yeah, Ravens Bucs Monday Night Football next week. So the Bucs are hosting the Ravens next week, Monday Night Football. There's another Monday Night Football doubleheader next week, Sam.
Cool. The Spencer Rattler was this close to unlocking the great Bub Means. Bub Means, who ends up with, 5 catches, 45 yards, a touchdown, and would have had a really nice breakout game, but for a fumble. The fumble kind of mars it a bit.
How's that Spencer Rattler's fault?
I'm not saying it was. I'm just saying he was that close to unlocking Bub Means, who was almost unlocked, but for the fumble.
Got a touchdown.
Yeah.
Unlocked. You just said, cool. Setting up Ravens and Bucs, and you're just like, cool.
Yeah. Another Monday night doubleheader. Cool.
It starts later. The second game starts at 9, though.
9?
Yeah.
Why?
It's an 8:15 and a 9 o'clock start.
Why?
Because they're testing all these different start times so they can figure out just how much they can lean into these doubleheaders in the future. Like, where do the ratings go? They tried the 7:30 and the 8:15. Now they're doing an 8:15 and a 9 next week.
Huh.
Remember old Monday Night Football used to be at 9 o'clock.
Did it?
Growing up. Yeah, 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Head-to-head with Monday Night Raw back in the day. Are you ready? No more use for this game.
Yeah.
Baltimore Ravens 30, Washington Commanders 23. Solid game here. Ravens, they moved to 4-2. Their fourth straight win. Commanders fall. Right? Is that right? Fall to 4-2?
Yes.
I just lost track again where I'm at.
Losing the game. Correct.
Jeez. Oh, it's a good show for me so far. Ravens dominant on offense once again. Lamar Jackson, 323 yards through the air. They ran for another 176. QB Neal's even hurt that a little bit. Derrick Henry, 132 and 2 scores.
We had that email, a while ago that was talking about grading our performance during the shows. We should have...
How many times I lose track of my notes and don't finish my thought?
Well, we should have people, like the booth should be keeping track of this with like a live ticker. You could just have your score could just be going redder and redder into the negative, 0.5 at a time every time you lose track of your notes.
As the host, I feel like I've got a more difficult job here. I have to say more words. I have to set everything up. I set you up and you just react.
Yeah.
And then if you don't have anything to say, I have to be like, you have nothing else. Mm-hmm. And then I have to fill in. Like, I've got a much more difficult job here.
People don't know.
They don't realize
the grind that's involved.
And then every now and again, you just get to like pull out a cool, here's the thing I saw. Let's talk long snappers, or let's talk rugby passes, and you never know where it's going to come from.
I know. People don't understand the struggle.
I'm just setting you up for success here.
Involved in the host position. They don't get it. I'm just saying it would be kind of funny if the producers were tracking our individual
we just had
performances.
Little grades.
Yeah.
We should hire PFF to grade our performances. It's got to come from them, the official graders.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Talk about
the game.
I could talk about. I just read my notes, or you could also chime in and talk about this game as well. It's up to you.
Okay. Well, I think overall Baltimore was clearly a better team than Washington. But for for just another game, I came away extremely impressed by Jaden Daniels. Like he was working from a disadvantageous position on the basis that his defense was not going to stop Baltimore, whereas the Ravens had a pretty good chance that their defense was going to be able to hold up against Washington. But he, again, just kept answering the bell. Like, came out, knew that he was behind the 8 ball, knew that he was going to have to do more because his defense wasn't going to hold up, and did. Like, he looked really good again.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, tight red zone touchdown from Jaden Daniels was good. I mean, Baltimore did underrated in this whole Jaden Daniels unbelievable run that he's been on. The run game has been very good for Washington as well.
Right.
And
No Brian
Robinson.
Robinson.
No Brian Robinson in this game. Plus, Baltimore just did a really nice job up front. I went back and rewatched all the runs for Washington against Baltimore's defense. What you picture Baltimore's defense to be: gap sound, winning blocks,
big bodies,
sturdy, big bodies. Michael Pierce making plays, Travis Jones making plays, Kyle Van Noy setting the edge. They just did a really nice job. So immediately, they make Washington one-dimensional. They played Jaden Daniels on the couple keepers that he had really well as well. They played the edge extremely well. So now all of a sudden, it's a one-dimensional Washington offense, which again, if you're just looking at Jaden Daniels' development and in evaluation, I'm just more impressed coming out of this game, because these are the types of games we talked about coming in. Like, the Ravens beat up on good teams over the last couple of years. They beat up on last year's Lions and Niners and Dolphins, and the Commanders hung tough. So, yeah, I'm impressed by their offense, by Jaden Daniels, their ability to stay close, some of the tight window throws that he was able to make, because the Ravens should be a better team than Washington.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a positive 7-point loss here from Washington. And then from Baltimore's perspective, I just thought they were pretty much unstoppable offensively, which we should expect, I think, from a bad Washington defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it sort of showed the limitations of Washington this season. Like, the 4-1 start, it's got people talking, once you get to the extreme ends of the shouty shows or whatever, we're talking MVP for Jaden Daniels, we're talking winning divisions, we're talking playoff, all these kinds of things. Washington, I think, can absolutely make the playoffs, and maybe they can win the division based off the Eagles and the Cowboys not looking particularly good this year. But I think this game showed the difference between them and a really good team. Like, their offense might absolutely be able to hang with really, really good teams. Their defense is just too big a problem to be at that level. Like, if and when they make the playoffs and they run into this slate of, okay, now everybody's good,
yeah,
that's where we're going to have some issues. Not that Jaden Daniels can't handle it, but their defense can't.
Baltimore was just big play after big play. I thought this was probably the best game ever from Zay Flowers as an NFL player. Took a screen for 44 yards. I mean, he just kind of ran in a straight line. Isaiah likely had a beautiful block on that one, but Zay Flowers caught all 9 of his targets, 132 yards, 7 first downs in this one. Made plays down the field, made plays after the catch. Mark Andrews with a couple big plays down the field, wide open a couple times as well. So again, I think Washington's defense is rough right now, but Baltimore showed all of the various playmakers that they have. Lamar Jackson, a 33-yard keeper, and then Derrick Henry, putting a bow on everything.
I mean, this was the perfect storm of, it's a bad defense anyway. It's also unusually bad in terms of matchups. Like, Benjamin St-Juste covering Zay Flowers is just a train wreck before you even start the play. Like, big, long, physical corner against small, shifty, twitchy, underneath slot type of receiver, right? It's like, remember when Brandon Browner for the Seahawks, the sort of, I guess, the weakest link of the Legion of Boom secondary, when he got matched up against like a small, shifty wide receiver, it was the only thing that he couldn't really deal with.
Julian Edelman in the Super Bowl.
Right. It's like, that's just a bad matchup for a guy like that. So, the Ravens were able to manufacture that a couple of times, and St-Juste trying to cover Zay Flowers was just painful to watch sometimes. But yeah, Zay Flowers looked great. Rashad Bateman looked really good. He had a few of those plays where he was exposing the defense as well. Mark Andrews, who's been sort of AWOL for a lot of the season, had probably his best game. Had certainly a big impact on the performance.
Nice touchdown,
and then obviously
in the red zone.
Yeah, and then obviously Derrick Henry continues to truck along. And Baltimore, they threw up this stat on red zone yesterday. Remember when the Ravens went on this run of 43 straight games of at least 100 team rushing yards, which was, it tied the record with the 70 Steelers for like the most in NFL history. All of the other teams that have been on that list end of the 70s, right? It's like 70 Steelers, 50s Lions or whatever. They're all old school records. But the Ravens with Lamar Jackson went on this 43 straight run where they'd hit that. And then I forget who ended it, but it ended. And they just picked it up again. So they're now back to, they have 2 of the top 5 streaks of all time. And they're a few games away from making that now, breaking that record. And also basically a game away from having like an 80-something run record. Lamar Jackson means you will have 100-plus rushing yards in the game.
Oh, yeah. It's another example of Lamar. Lamar changes the math on a lot of things because of what he can do as a runner. And his style is unique to the NFL. We've never seen a quarterback have that many design runs. Not like Jalen Hurts has more technical design runs, but they're all the tush-push, like sneak type stuff. And he'll do a little bit more scrambling than design run stuff. Lamar, as a design runner, had the 33-yarder on just a QB sweep. You got to be able to cover that, and they are finding their groove with Derrick Henry. It's also the second straight week. They get under center, they run toss sweep to the left, and it's Derrick Henry for 27 in a 7-point game in the fourth quarter to win it. That's what they did in overtime against the Bengals to set up their game winner last week.
Derrick Henry, for his entire career, is basically the walking embodiment of every running back cliche that's ever been used in the NFL. Get stronger in the fourth quarter, body blows, all that kind of old school dinosaur talk.
Stronger as he goes. You got to feed him because he's better in the 20th carry than he is the first.
It's all true with Derrick Henry,
yes.
And he's the only player in the NFL for whom that is true. He's the exception. In the fourth quarter yesterday, so Baltimore have the lead. They're the better team. Fourth quarter, it's Derrick Henry time. We got to salt this away. In the fourth quarter, Derrick Henry had 8 carries for 56 yards, with 45 of them coming after contact. Derrick Henry in the fourth quarter just punishes defenses and ends games. That's what he does, and he's really good at it.
I mean, he did it with the Titans. I mean, the Titans made it to the AFC Championship. They got the best couple years out of Ryan Tannehill. Honestly, I think A.J. Brown was a bigger driver of Tannehill's stats, but it was that combination. Remember, I used to call them the dudes, right? Every week, the Titans, either A.J. Brown or Derrick Henry, the dudes would just make plays and find ways to win. And the Ravens have that. And I kind of wish we didn't see them play the Chiefs in week 1. I kind of wish we saw them in the middle of the season, and maybe we'll see them in the playoffs.
We might see it again.
We might see them in the playoffs again, but I kind of wish we saw it because they felt a little out of sync. They weren't ready yet in week 1. They're starting to find their groove on under center runs from Derrick Henry, gun runs with Lamar Jackson. If Zay Flowers keeps playing like this, because we've joked a lot about Zay Flowers, they feed him screens and he's kind of dancing around and not going anywhere. When he made a move, he was going places yesterday. This is the Ravens at their best offensively when they have all these different style playmakers cooking at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, they look a different offense now than week 1, and they're not the only team for whom that's true. But it's extremely exciting for them because this combination of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry is now really working. Like this Madden, create a team dream that everybody had. Like at one point, the broadcast was talking this front office deserves so much credit for identifying that Lamar Jackson plus Derrick Henry might equal something special. I'm like, are you crazy? People have been asking for that for years, just as what would this look like?
Absolutely.
It's not like a difficult, what would this be? This might be quite fun. Everyone's been like, if only these two were in the same backfield together, this would be ridiculous. And now we're seeing it.
And again, we're not necessarily advocates for go get that free agent running back, but Derrick Henry has been an exception to the rule, even at his age.
Yeah.
The team. Are you done with this game?
Just to
segueing.
Just to reiterate that point, which is this offseason was a lot of what does Derrick Henry have left? Is it smart to go after a running back of 30 years old with his workload, his history, everything he's done? You're like, the dude has always been an exception, right? And generally, I think it's bad process to chase exceptions, to go looking for unicorns. But I think Derrick Henry has enough of a history now of being the exception that we can say he's probably going to continue to be the exception.
I mean, Christian McCaffrey has been – here's the thing with the whole running back discussion. It's not like if you knew that you had the production of a Christian McCaffrey or a Derrick Henry, if you knew that you were going to get that production, it is valuable and makes an impact. It's predicting it.
Yeah.
That is the problem.
But even Christian McCaffrey is less of an exception than Derrick Henry. Like Christian McCaffrey's career behaves a lot more conventionally in terms of what we know to be true about running back dependency and all this kind of stuff, as evidenced by Jordan Mason coming in and still cooking, as evidenced by Carolina actually having a better productive offense at times when Christian McCaffrey was not in the lineup than when he was, His career has, I mean, he's an exception in terms of there are very few players with his complete level of skill set, and he absolutely adds something to that 49ers offense. But he's not the kind of exception that Derrick Henry is, where the rules do not apply to Derrick Henry. Like things that are supposed to happen to running backs or that people say running backs do, but actually there's no statistical evidence for. Derrick Henry, it's actually true. He is a one-of-one freak show.
Also, just to add this really quick, when you go back through Henry's career, like his first 2 or 3 weeks of the season are never good. All of his worst games are like, oh, he averaged 2 yards per carry and 3 yards per carry, and he went nowhere. And then as soon as you're like, well, running out of gas, running out of juice, Derrick Henry, he's getting too old. All of a sudden he goes for 150 and 199 and 132.
It's like the year.
It is very consistent with what he does early in the season in building up to, you know, being a little bit better by the middle of the year.
The year where Barry Sanders had 2,053 yards or whatever it was, like through 2 games, he had like 50-something yards.
1997?
Yeah, and then he went on a run of like 150 every week.
Yeah, incredible. So the team that didn't want Derrick Henry was the Dallas Cowboys, Sam.
Couldn't afford him, Steve.
Yeah.
Didn't have the money for it.
Again, I'm not a go out and get a running back advocate, but maybe should have pushed this a little bit more for the Cowboys. Detroit Lions 47, Cowboys 9.
Why would you want old man Derrick Henry when you can get the youth of Zeke Elliott, a whole year younger than him?
I feel like we wasted 3 minutes talking about Zeke Elliott the other day, but then you watch his 8 carries in this game, and I feel like it was warranted, right? I feel like we're in this golden age of 1-2 punches at running back. We're going to talk about the Falcons with Bijan and Algier in a minute. We were just talking about the Bucs and what they did with Sean Tucker, undrafted free agent, and Bucky Irving, and how difficult those dudes were to tackle. Handing the ball off to Zeke Elliott 8 times is a big waste.
Yeah.
The real story here, though, the Lions' dominant fashion, the Aiden Hutchinson injury, being out for the season with his broken leg. Let's start from the Lions' perspective here and just how dominant this game was.
Yeah, I mean, they were crushing. Like this, Detroit's offense having production against Dallas's defense was not a massive shock. I think we kind of expected that to be the case. How dominant they were maybe was a bit of a surprise. And the big thing for Dallas is that they had no kind of answer on the other side of the ball at all. Like this was a potential shootout game, but only one side came equipped with ammunition.
We predicted the shootout, right? We predicted Dallas should be able to hang, right?
Yeah.
They should be able to make some plays down the field, similar to Seattle. Like I was picturing this Seattle-like game where the Lions controlled that game, but Seattle kept punching back, making plays in the pass game, and Dallas just didn't have that either.
No, they didn't. They just didn't have the equipment to deal with it. Like the Lions' offense was basically unstoppable. I love how hard they were trolling, whether it's the NFL or the Cowboys or both, with the Dan Skipper stuff.
The officials.
Yeah, like was he eligible, was he not? Very first play, Dan Skipper was eligible. The very last play, Dan Skipper was eligible. He was also lined up as a true wide receiver at times, which we suggested going into the game. They also threw a target, not to him in the red zone, but to Taylor Decker, the other offensive tackle.
Well, they ran Decker's touchdown that got negated last year.
They ran a hook and lateral to Penei Sewell, the play that I've been calling for, admittedly with Mailata, but I think you called it out for Sewell as well. You run a quick pass to a wide receiver and then lateral it to the giant rugby background offensive lineman and let him rumble, and that was negated as well. They also had Dan Skipper.
This, the pitch to Sewell.
Oh, such a good play.
Look at this. He keeps his balance and reaches for the end zone, but there was a procedural penalty.
Negated for illegal man downfield.
He's probably down with the forearm. It doesn't matter.
That was a classic.
Dan Skipper's playing receiver.
That was a classic rule of cool play where it just should have stood, right? Stand. Like it's illegal man downfield is one of those penalties where you can call it or you can let it slide. Should have let it slide.
It is one if you go back and look at some there are plays where there's linemen 5 yards downfield sometimes.
I mean, in the world of RPOs, it's a very fuzzy line now. Like you can call that a lot more if you want to. And
it's also tricky because you could be engaged in downfield, but there was one in the Giants-Bengals game last night where the tackle was engaged and then just came off the block. He didn't even block anybody, but it was a yard downfield and they called it. Anyway,
Anyway, they were trolling hard with all that. They also had Dan Skipper out there on all the kneel downs. Like, they were making a point. And I love that.
I can't remember if I did say this on Thursday, but when I was talking about a couple weeks ago when the Bengals were trolling Mahomes and the Chiefs are kind of, talking trash and everything, I'm like, don't do that. You don't do that against the greats, right? That was the Anthony Smith, the safety from the Steelers back in 2007, making comments about the Patriots. Like, the Patriots with Tom Brady and Randy Moss were good enough to say, you made comments this week, we're going to attack you specifically and make you look bad. With a throwback pass, with a red zone pass, we're going to make you look bad. Like, we're good enough to do that. I think Mahomes and the Chiefs are good enough to like troll the Raiders when they play them this year because of what happened this offseason. The Lions are good enough now with all these playmakers. They're good enough to just play games with Dan Skipper and have some fun while laying it on what's supposed to be another NFC contender. That might be the most impressive thing, is that's how good the Lions are right now. That and this Ben Johnson offense, it is unbelievable how many fast guys they just have running open through the secondary. Jameson Williams with more big plays.
Huge game.
Almost forget that they have Khalif Raymond, who used to be their one big play threat before they added Jameson Williams, before they added Sam Laporta. But they had Sam Laporta with the 52-yard trick play. You have David Montgomery with an incredible touchdown run weaving through the defense. You have Jahmyr Gibbs. I feel like every week I'm a broken record listing off the good players that the Lions have, and they all have something special about them. A shiftiness, a speed element, a power element of a David Montgomery, and all of that combined makes this the most beautiful offense to watch in the league.
It is nuts. And I think, to a degree, the trolling thing, I think for a coach like Ben Johnson and for a team like the Lions, I think that actually sparks creativity. Like, I think being motivated to, like, what's the best way we can come up with of, like, trolling the Cowboys or the officials. Like, I think that actually sparks some of this, like, genuine creativity and dialing up cool things that you wouldn't do otherwise. Like, it's not a bad thing or a distraction. I think it's actually a spark. It's a catalyst to creating some more interesting plays that wouldn't have been there otherwise. But yeah, so on the one hand, phenomenal job by Detroit. Like, that offense, the speed, the devastation that those playmakers can bring to the table is insane. On the other hand, massive indictment of this Dallas defense, which was awful. And like, so there's the Jameson Williams, his touchdown where that was a really good example of it, where he was the point guy on a like a bunch formation. Those are usually the guys that get jammed and effectively either disrupted or straight removed from the play by the corner, right? Dallas's defense, and Trayvon Diggs in particular, got whooped off the line. And the point guy ends up going all the way past him, smokes him off the line, and outruns him all the way for a touchdown. That, A, shouldn't happen, and B, I think is a good play to sort of highlight, yeah, look, Detroit were making plays, and you got to give them credit, but this Dallas defense rolled over and died as well. Like, they were a big part of this by how badly they played.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas they have issues. I mean, part of the reason, this was my other prize picks projection that went well, David Montgomery more than his rushing total, because I'm like, hey, they're going to run all over the Cowboys. The Lions had almost 500 total yards. The Cowboys just didn't get better this offseason. Again, I don't want to harp on the Zeke thing, but
I mean, forget Zeke. Broaden it to the backfield. It's the worst backfield in the NFL, and their inability to get spark from anybody.
I'm gonna widen it further, right? Every player that touches the football for the Lions, Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, I cannot give them enough credit because they went through, handpicked these guys, and including Tim Patrick, by the way. As I said yesterday, I can't believe the league let the Lions get Tim Patrick, who had 3 catches for 68 yards. But they went through, and each person on that offense has a purpose, right? We haven't even talked about co-worker Amon-Ra St. Brown, 4 catches for 37 and a score as well. Each person has a specific role in that offense, right? Speed, mismatch ability, route running, shiftiness, after the catch ability. They all have something or multiple traits that they bring to the table. Running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers included. And then for the Cowboys to have just Zeke Elliott as their backup running back and wasting those plays where the guy can't go anywhere. Again, not to harp on that, it's just the team building effort where the Lions have everybody specific and the Cowboys they had CeeDee Lamb, who's awesome, and Brandon Cooks, who's injured, and Jalen Tolbert might be developing, but you just don't see that level of depth on Dallas's team. And I think they had the ability to do it. They have the ability to do that and build that team. But they completely ignored the backfield. It would be interesting if they did actually go after Derrick Henry this offseason. And they had that in their bag, Dallas. In their bag, they had certain games where they could go Derrick Henry for 25 carries. I don't know if they even wanted to do that. I don't know if Mike McCarthy wants to do that. I don't know. But it would have been interesting to see if they could do it. But the team building effort between the Lions and the Cowboys felt like night and day coming out of this.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think a big indictment of Dallas is that backfield. Broadening beyond Zeke Elliott, there is nobody in that backfield that provides any kind of juice. And this is a landscape where those players are everywhere. Like, part of the reason running backs are not a massively valuable position is because it's so easy to find them. Like, the 49ers are down, McCaffrey goes down, and oh, look, Jordan Mason, who nobody's ever heard of, is cooking, right? Look at Miami. There's just endless speed backs that provide juice anytime somebody goes down. Like, it is not hard to find a running back that can come in and go, oh, look what we found. Look at this guy. Dallas have nobody in that backfield that does that at all. And it's happening at the same time where the offensive line is starting to disintegrate now from, its heyday, where it was just this endless run of first-round draft picks, all of whom were playing like all pros, right? It was the best offensive line in football, Hall of Famers left, right, and center. Now you've got this group where rookie left tackle, Tyler Guyton, struggles. Terrence Steele after
Guyton missed the game.
Right,
with
generally.
Injury, yeah, of course.
Terrence Steele isn't the same player he was before injury and is now something of a liability at right tackle. Cooper Beebe at center, another rookie, might be one of their best players now. Zach Martin, a Hall of Famer, one of the best offensive linemen of the last 20 years, looks like he's now, if not done, then very firmly on the downswing of his career, definitely declining. It's gone from being the best offensive line in the NFL and maybe one of the best of all time at its peak to now this group is actually problematic more often than not.
Yeah.
And that coincides with, and there's nobody in the backfield that can offset that because it's a bad group. So there's no run game. Dak Prescott's got to do it all on his shoulders. And we talked before about Dak Prescott, I think, is one of the more susceptible quarterbacks in the NFL to changes in his supporting cast. Well, his supporting cast is a lot worse than it used to be. Maybe not in receiving core, but the line on the backfield is terrible right now.
Yeah, I mean, that brings up to mind, again, I just want to compliment Brad Holmes and the team building effort by the Lions. As the Cowboys needed to fill two starting spots on their offensive line, left tackle and center this offseason, the Lions had the best offensive line and then added Kevin Zeitler to the mix at guard. Right? They already had 4 out of 5 solidified spots with probably the best top 4 offensive linemen of any team in the league, and then added a good solid Kevin Zeitler at guard. I mean, everything that the Lions did. Lions had defensive line issues. They get they get DJ Reader next to Alim McNeil, right? I mean, they had secondary issues. They draft and add talent there. So there's just so much that the Lions have done well these last couple of years.
Unfortunately, though, that brings us to maybe the biggest takeaway from this game, which is, Detroit won handily, looked great doing it, but it was incredibly costly because Aiden Hutchinson breaks his leg on a freak play, already had surgery, he's going to be done for the year, and a guy that was stringing together a Defensive Player of the Year kind of season isn't there anymore.
Yeah, that was a tough loss. Hutchinson looking unbelievable this year. He'll be the league leader in pressures for another week or two. That's how far ahead he has. They had a bye week. He'll still be the leader for another week or two, and that's how good he's been. And then, freak injury to break his tibia.
Such a freak injury. I mean, he injured himself on a sack. Like, he was getting Dak Prescott. His leg just sort of whipped around and collided, I think, with his own, I think it was Alim McNeil, his leg hit off of. And it was like those MMA injuries where leg kick gets checked by shin, and it's shin on shin, and then one shin just gives. And his leg just whipped around, cracked into Alim McNeil's shin, and just snapped.
J.J. Watt was upset.
Yeah, horrible injury for him. Really sad for him to go down like that. And now I mean, there's a few things. We're going to see, I think, this team building exercise for Detroit. Like, they went from having a good pass rush with Aiden Hutchinson effectively getting more pressure than any pass rusher in the NFL this season individually, to suddenly, I think this is a problematic group without him there.
Yeah, even if he was there, I think they probably needed help on the edge anyway.
So now you get into, do they make a move? Like, is this a team where Detroit thinks this is a big enough blow that we need to go and trade for somebody?
So I think I want to get into this in more detail on Wednesday. I think we'll have a guest to go through it. Might have Rick Spielman. We'll see. To go through potential trade options for the Lions. I mean, I don't want to move on quickly to that. Like, our very upsetting watching Hutchinson, who's so fun to watch, has been so durable, played a ton of snaps these last couple of years, and he's the heart and soul of that Lions defense. And then from a week-to-week standpoint, we said there's so many games where he's the only guy, right? He's the guy with 10 pressures and no one else has more than 3. Even if he was healthy, Lions fans have been asking for Max Crosby for 2 years from the Lions. And we'll show you something a little bit later where Max Crosby might be a little upset with the Raiders right now. Something's going on over there. So that, I don't know if that could potentially be in play, if the Raiders just want to blow everything up.
Hassan Reddick just hired a new agent, Drew Rosenhaus, to fix it all.
As we've been live here, yeah, Hassan Reddick, and he's got Drew Rosenhaus. They're in New York, New Jersey, talking to the Jets, trying to get Hassan Reddick back on the field.
Reddick, whose holdout was such a bad idea that his own agency fired him.
Yes.
You don't tend to see that.
You don't tend to see that. Man, you're costing us a lot of money. We're out of here. So yeah, I think there's trade options to discuss for the Lions. People wanted Max Crosby and Aiden Hutchinson together anyway, so that's going to be going full steam ahead. We'll try to get to some more logistical options as well.
Crosby, I don't think wants any part of being out of the Raiders, by the way. Like, I believe him he's got
just pushing a coach yesterday.
He's got that Raiders tattoo. He's, hashtag Raiders Nation for life. I believe
Max
Crosby,
but you can have a tattoo. You're once a Raider, always a Raider. Like, again, Bruce Gradkowski is invited to every Raiders event every offseason. Our friend Bruce.
Like, I believe Max Crosby when he says that he wants to be a Raider. Like, he wants to be nowhere else. He wants to be a Raider for life. I believe Crosby in a way that I don't believe other players when they say things like that. He, I think, absolutely wants to be in Las Vegas and be a Raider and doesn't want to go anywhere else.
Anything else on Hutch and his injury?
I mean, just horrible for him. Again, he'd been having an incredible season. It's a ridiculous freak injury for it to happen. Just a bummer for him, bummer for the Lions as well. It's an incidental point, but it's a shame that we don't get to see him against better offensive tackles. He's had this ridiculous run of substandard offensive linemen, and his season ends before we get to see what it would look like against better players. He's had the occasional snap where he's gone to the other side and rushed against better players, but by far the majority of his work this year has been done against basically backups. Even with chip help and alignment and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a bad situation for everybody. Like Hutchinson, the Lions, anyone interested in what his season would look like over the full 17 games, just sucks.
One other shout out from this game: Brian Branch, 2 interceptions. The one in the end zone against Dak Prescott, where he was supposed to cover the flat, reads it with depth. Dak thinks he's going to cover the flat, and Branch just pulls off and picks it off. Really nice job. I don't know if he baited him exactly, but that's how you play. You play high to low, read the quarterback, go up and make the play. Also has a forced fumble in there. So 2 picks and a forced fumble. Basically, the Lions have all my favorite players. So I love the Lions. They're my favorite team of all time as far as the accumulation of players that the Lions have. That has to be it. Because I thought Brian Branch should have been picked in the top 10. And he was drafted in the second round by the Lions last year.
I've said last week sometime that I'm on a pretty impressive run of L's in terms of draft takes, but Brian Branch is one that I will claim as a win. Like, I thought that guy was a ridiculously good player, and I couldn't believe that he slid to the second round, basically because we ran a slow 40.
Yeah.
That guy can play anywhere in your secondary and will upgrade the position.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you ranked him as a corner. You were like, he can play corner. He can do it all. I believe it. Lions play the Vikings next week. They go to Minnesota. 4-1 Lions against the 5-0 Vikings. One last stat we have to pull out there. I've seen a few different
versions of it. Yeah.
Versions of. I saw it first from Ben Solak though. The NFL leader in point differential is the Minnesota Vikings at plus 61. Then the Detroit Lions at plus 60. The Bears at plus 47. And the Packers at plus 41. That's every team in the NFC North has a better point differential than every other team in the league.
Yeah, and Schefter tweeted that the NFC North is now the first division since realignment, 2002, where all 4 teams have at least 4 wins through 6 weeks.
It's impressive. I mean, we thought that the AFC and the NFC North would be the 2 best divisions in football. AFC North has underwhelmed. The NFC North has been, as advertised, even better than advertised. Something's got to give next week, though. Lions and Vikings going head to head.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be a very good game, a very good test, I think, for both teams. As we say, sadly, the Lions will be without Aiden Hutchinson, but man, really impressive division so far.
All right, I got to tell you about our friends over at Prize Picks, the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less, that's it, on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code CheckTheMic. You get $50 instantly when you play $5. It's code CheckTheMic on Prize Picks. You get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. So you guys have been following along with our Prize Picks lineups the last couple weeks. I'm 2 for 2 in lineups over the last couple weeks. Have a chance to go 3 for 3 tonight. I need James Cook to go more than his 59.5 rushing yard projection in the game against the Jets, picking against the Jets run defense here. But that's how you do it, right? So I picked this week, I went James Cook. We talked about David Montgomery more than his rushing projection and Rome Odunze more than his receiving projection. Just stick with the NFC North. They will come through, as we've already talked about. But yeah, it's a great way to play. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. And Prize Picks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quickly as 15 minutes. So download the app today. Use code CheckTheMic. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Code CheckTheMic, $50 instantly. Don't even have to win, but play your first $5 lineup. You get that $50 instantly. Prize Picks, run your game.
The last stat that we have to give for that Detroit-Dallas game, per ESPN research, this is from Todd Archer, the Cowboys allowed 167 points in their last 4 home games, including the regular season and the playoffs. That's the 3rd most over a 4-game span at home in NFL history by any team. So this playoff-bound Dallas Cowboys, theoretically, has allowed the 3rd most points in a 4-game span at home that has ever been allowed by any team in the NFL.
That is crazy.
Right in front of Jerry on his birthday.
On his birthday. With the
light
October
dappling on
sun.
the
With the October sun. It was perfect. They show the replay of Dak. Do you have my tweet?
We reach this point every year. So early in the season, you don't get this.
Do you guys have my Dak tweet with the sun shining on him?
Yeah, we reach a point in the season where Jerry's beautiful stadium design starts to blind his own players, and it's the funniest thing that happens in the NFL every year.
There it is. This was Dak drops back, and I don't care. There's people, the camera's doing this. I don't really care. This is funny. He throws a pick right into the sun, right into Brian Branch on this play.
Yeah.
The sun is coming through. Every other field is oriented north-south because they don't want the sun in your eyes when you drop back. But explain why this is happening here, Sam.
Because
why is the sun in his eyes?
Because Jerry likes this is the problem, right, with media today. It's all slanted. It's all got an agenda. You're busy pointing out the sun in his eyes, right? But what you're not noticing is the beautiful dappled effect on the field. Look at that. See? It's pretty. That's nice. What Jerry likes. Jerry, this is full Howard Hughes stuff, where Jerry's up there in his booth, right? And he just wants to see the aesthetically pleasing dapple light effect on his field down there, right? And he's willing to build the entire stadium oriented in this way so that happens.
It peaks in October,
and
right?
If it happens,
that the perfect sun height for this type of view?
Correct. During football season.
During football season.
And if it happens to sear the retinas out of his own quarterback every year, that's fine. That's a sacrifice worth making for the enjoyment of Jerry.
So what if you can't see Brian Branch playing robber over the middle of the field and he throws it right to him? Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's aesthetically pleasing on his birthday, no less.
Right. The retinas of Cowboys players are a sacrifice Jerry is simply willing to make for his own enjoyment in an October evening.
That's the other genius of Ben Johnson. He knows, even as a visiting player, we're not going to have Jared Goff dropping back into the sun.
No.
We're going to be pitching the ball to Penei Sewell and hitting Dan Skipper as a wide receiver over here because that's what we're going to do instead of throwing the ball over the middle of the field to safeties.
There was that interception straight into the sun. There was also a bomb to Jalen Tolbert, I think, where it looked very much like he lost the ball.
He lost it in the sun.
In the sun.
Yes.
And this happens. Like every year, there's at least a play or two where a Cowboys player quite clearly gets blinded by turning around.
It's also your home field advantage. You should
Right. Turning around and having your retina seared out of your head by the sun streaming in through the giant windows at the end of the stadium that could easily have been averted if Jerry had simply turned the stadium slightly when constructing it. But deliberately, he decided not to do that. And it's so funny that every year that happens.
Is Dallas worth is that worth a Wednesday discussion? Where do they go from here? How do they get here? They haven't played the Eagles yet or the Commanders, by the way.
Yeah, and on the one hand, that means they can get back in this if they just win a couple of those games.
It's one way of looking at it. The other thing is, I don't think they're better than either of those teams right now.
I mean, they're not. They need to improve. But it does mean that it's kind of within their own, their fate is in their own hands to a degree.
We might have to spend some more time on Dallas later this week. Atlanta Falcons get the win over the Carolina Panthers. What was the score? 38-20. Falcons moved to 4-2. It's right there up on the screen. It's so much easier. Don't have to look at my notes. You guys are the best. Panthers fall to 1-5, but Falcons rolling here now. The offense, man, looking smooth. Again, my biggest takeaway from the Falcons these last couple weeks, with the caveat that the Panthers do this. If you go back and listen to Steve's analysis of every Panthers opponent during this year, I might be talking up their offense. I might say the Saints' offense is great. Oh, they just beat the Panthers. I might say the Bengals' offense is great. They just beat the Panthers. I might say Caleb Williams just had his best game against the Panthers. But we'll do it again. Falcons' offense, because they did it last week too. They did it against the Bucs. 2 straight weeks now, the Falcons, this is the best they've done at taking the list of playmakers. Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier in the backfield, Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Kyle Pitts, Ray McLeod, Kirk Cousins at the helm. 2nd straight week, though, where they spread the ball around and you see the value of all of those playmakers coming together in a really good offense with our friend Zach Robinson pulling the strings.
If you listen to Steve's analysis, you're just going to casually drop that third-person reference.
Yeah.
And act like that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
If you smell what Steve's cooking. That's right.
Okay. That's fine. So it is worth making the point that this is against Carolina's defense, and outside of like a spark where Bryce Young, the euphoria they experienced, Bryce Young no longer dragging them down, it's still a bad defense. Atlanta basically ran for like 200 yards in this game. Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier both look spectacular again. Their receivers look good. The offense looked really good, but it is at least worth saying against what appears to be a terrible defense.
Yeah. I've got my Panthers pressure check. Here we go. Last week I listed the players who got the most pass rushes for the Panthers.
Okay.
And how they were not good players. Yeah. And they didn't have good football results.
Yes.
This week, Charles Harris with the most rushes, 26. He had 3 pressures. DJ Johnson had 23 rushes, 0 pressures.
23 pressures would be good.
Yeah, it would be good. That'd be a week for Aiden. A'Shawn Robinson, 0 for 20.
Ooh.
Shai Tuttle, 0 for 16. I think A'Shawn got banged up as well. I mean, it is probably one of the worst pass rushing front fours I've ever seen. And I think there's 3 teams around the league where I could say that for. I mean, the Falcons aren't much better.
Right.
The Falcons aren't much better. They at least have names, though. Like Matthew Judon's been good before, and Ebiketie, I think, can do some damage, and Grady Jarrett's been good. They're just not getting home as often. The Panthers have a number 3 pass rusher at best in Charles Harris as their number 1, and the trickle down from that is like nobody who's ever done anything getting after the quarterback.
I mean,
so that's what makes it a little bit easier for Cousins and company.
The Barbarian would be the superstar defensive lineman on the Carolina Panthers.
Sure would.
Yeah.
And as much as we love the Barbarian, we still say, hey, the Cardinals' front four is not great.
Probably shouldn't be your number one.
Yeah. So that's just where they are. That's where they are. They got some work to do.
It's a problematic group, which is worth putting in there as context for this Atlanta offense, which has continued to develop, grow, look better week on week. And, I think there's 3 or 4 teams where there's been a very, very clear, like they look completely different from week one. We talked earlier about Baltimore being that. Now they got it together quicker, I think. But their offense in week one versus their offense this week, night and day. Atlanta, same thing. People were writing off like, they made the worst decision we've seen in a long time, signing Kirk Cousins. This guy can't move. He can't throw you can't run an offense like this. What are we doing here? Like smart people were writing this thing off as like a complete train wreck of an experiment. And now we're looking, he's fresh off the back of a 500-yard passing performance the week before, and now Kirk Cousins plays well again against a bad defense. But it's working. Like this offense has pulled together. They've got a much better idea of what they're doing. And the playmakers that we've been wondering why they don't fire every single week are now firing. Drake London had a really good game here. Kyle Pitts showed up again. We've unlocked Kyle Pitts, the final boss of the video game, right? We've figured out Kyle Pitts. He's making big plays week on week. All it took was for me to pick against him in the Prize Picks lineup last week.
That's it.
But Kyle Pitts is there. Bijan Robinson scoring touchdowns. Like all of the final side quests in the video game, Zach Robinson and Kirk Cousins have ticked off.
I want to talk up that 1-2 punch again. Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier. Algier's having a fantastic season, and I know to the angst of fantasy owners where he steals carries from Bijan Robinson, but Algier goes for 105 on 18 carries. Robinson had 95 on 15 carries. Bijan is that smooth, slick zone runner. I think he's doing a great job of turning your 2 and 3 yard gains into 6 or 7 these last couple weeks. Algier, though, 8 forced missed tackles. He's running through contact. He created 4.3 yards after contact per rush. I think Algier's been fantastic. I mean, if Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm just trying to think of 1-2 punches around the NFL. It's got to be Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, but Bijan and Algier are right there, right, as a 1-2 punch around the NFL. Yep. People thought that Breece Hall and Braylon Allen could be in that mix. They're not there right now. Algier and Bijan, though, as a 1-2 punch is outstanding, in addition to all the pass catchers that they have. I love watching this Falcons offense after they looked rough in week one, right? Yeah. They looked rough, and it slowly has gotten better and better as Cousins looks healthier, and I think they're starting to find their groove. It's smooth-looking offense.
It is. It looks really good.
With the caveat that it was just against the Panthers.
Yes. And if they hadn't done it the week before against Tampa Bay, you'd be a lot more like, this probably isn't real.
Let's wait.
But they have been getting better. Like it's consistent improvement, and it looks good now.
They get the Seahawks next week. That should be a good matchup. Again, the Seahawks beat up front, but impressed with where Atlanta's going. This was a close game. It was a 1-score game into the fourth quarter. Andy Dalton with a bad interception. Falcons capitalized, go up 2 scores, and pretty much run away with it from there. But Panthers hung tough early on, and their offense is still much better than it was earlier in the year.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever's that worth.
Yeah.
For whatever that's worth.
They are significantly better than they were under Bryce Young, obviously. And, that was a bad interception, the sort of forced throw for Andy Dalton that really did end the game for them. But because they have no defense, like this was a little bit like the Jaden Daniels thing where he knew he needed to do everything to make this function.
You have anything else on this?
No, not the most consequential or exciting game in the world.
I just think the Falcons offense, we spend all offseason talking about team building and how they should have this good offense, and Cousins should be the best option that they've had over the last couple of years at distributing the ball and giving them a chance to make plays. And I think over these last few weeks, we're starting to see that happen.
Yeah. I mean, they're a great example of just like, this is why you don't go crazy in the first couple of weeks, because often what you see in the first couple of weeks doesn't really mean much.
All right, let's go. Pittsburgh Steelers 32, Las Vegas Raiders 13. Steelers move to 4-2. Raiders fall to 2-4. Najee Harris. I'm just raving about running backs all day here. Najee Harris. What a game by him. Every time I look up, he had two spectacular runs in this. The second one, a 36-yard touchdown run, maybe the best of his career. And every time I looked up, he was running hard. He's running through people. I feel like he's run hard all season.
Yeah.
But coming into the game, only had 3.3 yards per carry. This is the first time that difficult to tackle style that he's employing this year, that hard running style, actually showed up in some production. Weird game though. Like every time the Raiders, Steelers had a couple short fields, two forced fumbles by T.J. Watt, one in Raiders territory, one with the Raiders going in to score. T.J. Watt being outstanding again, this time in the run game. Blocked punt will set up a Steelers short score. The story coming out of this game will be the Steelers at 4-2 have a healthy Russell Wilson on the sideline, and Justin Fields with his second straight subpar game as a passer. He was good as a runner. He had two scores on the ground, but that'll raise some questions in Pittsburgh this week.
Yeah, definitely. The win will help. It's not like they lost. It would have, I think, made it a fairly easy decision to go back to Russell Wilson. The fact that they won and won with a scoreline that was pretty comfortable is at least something in Fields' favor. But they don't. I mean, they had 2 straight weeks or something. They'd scored 3 points in the first half. I think they had 6 in the first half in this game. Like, this is an offense that really struggles to get anything going early in games. And then it seems like the longer it goes, the more Justin Fields can just make some sort of freaky ad-lib plays happen with his legs. And the defense has a chance to make plays, which is, where it came from in this game largely. But it was a second straight underwhelming performance from Fields as a passer. And given that they've maintained all the way along that Russell Wilson is the QB1, he's the starter, you're kind of running out of excuses not to go back to him at this stage.
It is one of those games, like the passing stat line and the inconsistency of the pass game. Fields going 14 of 24 for 145. No touchdowns, no picks, sacked 3 times, including the one on that trick play. Just kind of got popped from behind. But what?
It was just a really interesting. Them and the Lions ran almost identical trick plays, like basically the same play. The only difference being where the guy came from, the sort of the first pitch man. In Detroit's case, he came from the other side on motion. In Pittsburgh's case, he was on that side of the field. But it was basically the exact same trick play. And Detroit scores a touchdown off it, and Pittsburgh ends up with a 13-yard sack off it. It's like, and really the only difference was how the defenses aligned. The Raiders just sent one extra guy, and that one extra guy ends up being completely unblocked, takes a beeline straight to the quarterback, murders the entire play. And because we deal in a situation where results are the only thing anybody cares about, everyone's like, it's the worst play call of all time. It's
bad
dumb.
Play call.
Idiot.
Terrible.
What are you doing? And then it's Ben Johnson's a genius. Look at what he's dialing up. This is incredible. It's like it's the same
that's
play.
Part of it. You call it against the right defense. You call it against, not a backside blitz that's going to kill your quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, I do wonder at what part or what stage in the process. So it's possible that Freiermuth is supposed to be able to pick that guy up, which he tried to do at the end and didn't get there. It's also possible that given the way that defense lined up, the quarterback is supposed to kill that play, knowing that there's one extra guy that they can block there. Either way, it's just funny that basically the same play ends up with, on the one hand, a touchdown, the other hand, a sack, and getting people mocking it.
Yeah. Just to bring up the Fields thing again, so he gets sacked 3 times. That was one of them. Adds a lot of value on the ground, 2 rushing touchdowns. He does have that ability, and more than Russell Wilson does at this point in his career. So again, I always call it the J.T. Barrett game from college. The J.T. Barrett game in my mind, where the quarterback goes 9. He was like 9 for 23 for 70 yards, but he added another 100 yards on the ground. This isn't that level of extreme, but you have that hidden value. And again, I think overall this year Fields has played pretty well, but the last 2 weeks against Dallas and now against the Raiders, and the Raiders, their defense is like on and off feisty, but it still looks like a pretty bad football team.
Yeah.
Overall. And so his last 2 games, Dallas, Raiders, inconsistent in the pass game. There's definitely more there when George Pickens is playing to his ability. Calvin Austin, Freiermuth work in the middle of the field. So it'll bring that question up this week if Russ is going to be a better option for them.
Yeah, and then for the Raiders, you've got this thing's in free fall now. Basically, the only good thing they have on offense at the moment is Brock Bowers, the rookie. The switch at quarterback, Aiden O'Connell, hasn't achieved anything. Devontae Adams is still on the sideline with his hamstring injury, which may or may not be real as he looks to get traded out of there.
So the reports coming out on Friday or Saturday were that Aiden O'Connell was the guy that was going to maybe keep Davante Adams in town.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure that's true.
So based off all these reports, it seemed like Davante Adams hated Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe not personally, but just as his quarterback.
Yeah.
Hated Jimmy Garoppolo and apparently hates Gardner Minshew.
Uh-huh. I think he just
But he
hates-
loves Derek Carr, and he loves Aiden O'Connell.
Well, the loving Derek Carr thing makes sense on the basis
Yeah,
that
they're
they
buddies from Fresno.
Right, college quarterback, wide receiver. That makes sense. I suspect he quite likes Aiden O'Connell personally. I don't, however, believe for a second that Aiden O'Connell factors into his decision to stay or go at all.
Raider superfan Walt is begging for us to
Yeah. It felt
get to
a
the next
lot
game.
like...
Don't worry, Walt. You still have the 70s Raiders. You could always watch all those replays from, when you were a youngster.
You know the way the NFL insiders have now become basically agent mouthpieces. Oh yeah, we'll give you some information, but you have to tweet out exactly what I'm sending you via text. Otherwise, we'll never send you anything again for the rest of our lives.
Those are unfounded accusations from you.
Okay, you know the way NFL insiders have allegedly become just agent mouthpieces.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
This feels a lot like. So the way things have gone, we've somehow torpedoed the value of Davante Adams, and people aren't throwing over the second-round draft pick we're looking for. Could you put out there that actually it's not a done deal that he's leaving? He might stay because Aiden O'Connell is this guy. If you just put that out there into the public sphere, that might help us get that second-round draft pick.
Is this directly from Aiden O'Connell's agent?
No, I think it's from...
things are falling apart. Could you just tell everybody that Davante loves Aiden, and Aiden's so good?
No, this is
so
from,
good that he might stay.
This is from the desk of the Raiders front office.
Oh, okay.
It's like, could you please put it out there that Davante actually loves Aiden O'Connell? He might be willing to stay because of that. So we don't need to trade him away. If you want him, you're going to have to find that second-round draft pick.
Not getting the deal we want right
Yeah.
now. Not getting the deal we want.
I don't know. Still bad with the Raiders.
I saw this late last night, the video of Max Crosby pushing a coach.
Yeah.
What was that about? What was the context there?
Nothing according to Max.
Oh, okay.
It's all a fabrication.
It's just a competitor.
Yeah.
It's just a competitor. Sometimes in the heat of the battle, when we're podcasting, it's a long way away, but I'll just push you, get upset with you.
You could probably reach.
I probably could.
Yeah.
So just heat of the battle stuff. Because I don't like to think about this context free. I don't like to analyze things context free just based off the video.
Right.
But the last player to push a coach was Aaron Rodgers. And Robert Saleh got
And he
fired.
had that coach whacked.
Look at that. That's all I'm saying. Last thing. I don't mean to harp on this, but they hired Antonio Pierce
Yeah.
off of a half season of good vibes and a Christmas Day win against the Chiefs. And that might not be the best criteria for hiring a coach.
Yeah. I still think they had to do it.
It's fine.
It's unspooling, but I think they had to do that.
Everything that was good about that, players
Yes.
love them, play hard, like all of that might be, irrelevant at this point in the season for the Raiders.
Yeah, definitely.
The one last thing, every time the Raiders look this bad, I will think back to the Week 2 game where they beat the Baltimore Ravens
Right.
in a 10-point comeback in the fourth quarter, and think how much the Ravens are going to be kicking themselves at the end of the year. Because if the Chiefs lose a couple games, that one collapse for Baltimore from their perspective could cost them home field advantage, a bye, whatever it might be. And that essentially put them 3 games behind the Chiefs because they lost to the Chiefs. They lose the tiebreaker. They lose to the Raiders, set them way back. And the Chiefs still get to play the Raiders twice, even though they lost to them once last year. I don't know if that's going to happen this year.
Right.
So, anyway. Anything else on this game?
Nope.
What else we got? Los Angeles Chargers 23, Denver Broncos 16. Chargers move to 3-2. Broncos fall to 3-3.
Indeed. How many pass attempts did Justin Herbert end up with?
34.
Okay, so he'd been averaging 23, 22 a game, something like that, heading into this game. Then Harbaugh heads to the medical tent and then off the field with apparently a heart arrhythmia, which is pretty
I didn't hear that
jarring.
specifically until you mentioned it on the instant reaction last night.
And then coincidentally, Herbert ends up with like 13 pass attempts in the first quarter. The second his head coach is off the sideline. I don't know if that was coincidence or if that's just the way it broke down, but that was kind of funny. The Harbaugh thing is pretty crazy. Like apparently he was saying the heart arrhythmia causes like his heart to flutter to like 200 beats a minute or something. I That doesn't sound great.
So that's not just like the normal, like everybody gets like a little flutter here and there.
No, it's like a sustained
like
heart palpitations, where instead of a flutter, it's like for a period of time, his heart is going.
You must feel like, oh man, and he loves football so much. It must really, like Sunday at 1, he must get so jacked up. For the game.
It's one of those situations where you want to make a joke of it, right? Before you find out.
I'm not making a joke of it.
No,
I'm saying
the heart, before
his
you find
love
out.
for football probably gets him even more amped up.
But the report was just initially like Harbaugh's gone to the medical tent and then to the sideline, right? And like that's funny. Just before you know any more information,
sure.
Jim Harbaugh going to the medical tent randomly is quite a funny scenario, right? So I immediately wanted to like crack a joke about it because it's funny. But I didn't, just in case it was something quite serious, and you're like, oh, now you look like an idiot. So yeah, the heart arrhythmia, that's a pretty significant thing and sounds terrible for him. But it did occur to me that, like, because obviously when that's not a thing that normally happens, and people are like, was that a Paul Pierce medical visit or a Lamar Jackson, shuffling his way to the toilet type of thing? I genuinely believe that if it had been, Jim Harbaugh would prefer to crap himself on the sideline than go in to relieve himself. He loves ball that much. I think he would prefer to do it right in the slacks.
Yeah.
I'll clean it up later.
I mean, think about the
I got
motivation.
fourth down to think about right now.
Yeah, your offensive line would be fired up
How
after
much respect would they have for you if they
I
saw?
want to go to war with
This
this
is
guy.
what I'm willing to do.
Yeah.
Right here.
Got to go to war with this guy.
Yeah.
So Herbert throws the ball a lot more than usual. 237 passing yards, touchdown. Kamani Vidal. Vidal?
That's how they were saying it in the game.
Nice.
Vidal.
I didn't hear that. That's great. Nailed it. Beautiful throw for a 38-yard touchdown.
First touch in the NFL was a touchdown.
That's awesome. Should feed him even more. Second touch went for 2 yards, though, unfortunately. Second reception, at least. 4 carries for 11 yards for Vidal. But, yeah, he was a lot of people's favorite sleepers. I know our friend Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl talking him up as a pass-protecting running back who should, make a squad and do some damage. That was a beautiful pass by Justin Herbert for the touchdown there. And, they spread the ball around. Ladd McConkey still making plays for the Chargers. And back to running the ball quite a bit with J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, and Dobbins was sort of back to looking very good. He had a couple of really nice plays. Vidal, as you said, had the really nice reception. They were talking about wanting to work him in more as a receiving back. So there's a potential nice niche that he has there in addition to, like, even if J.K. Dobbins takes all the workload, and like this game's 25 carries to 4. So it's not like they're splitting the work there. But even if that maintains, Vidal has a path to the field as a receiver in this offense. This is like the opposite of the Falcons-Panthers game, where you have to view everything through the prism of these are 2 good pass defenses. So with the Chargers, the other game, you're like, but like neither one of these defenses could stop anything right now. This one, you're like, well, the Chargers have been one of the best defenses in the NFL, and so have the Broncos. And even though they lost Patrick Surtain to concussion at some point in the game, like, these have been 2 really good pass defenses. And, like Justin Herbert opened it up a bit more, didn't necessarily play that much better. And Bo Nix, for the first half, was really struggling before sort of clawing it back a bit in the second half.
Yeah, so he had an overthrow early, led to an interception by the Chargers. That helped the Chargers get up 10-0. It was 20-0 at the half, 23-0 into the fourth quarter. Broncos started to creep back into it. Our guy Troy Franklin with a 2-yard touchdown reception kind of whooped.
Oh, Troy!
Our other friend Derwin James kind of whooped him on the route. Franklin had another big catch in there as well, where he's wide open. Almost went full Plaxico on it.
Shot himself in the leg.
Not that Plaxico.
Oh.
The first Plaxico of Plaxicoing was his first year in the year 2000 when he was a Steeler. Plaxico catches a big pass over the middle, falls over, gets up, nobody touched him, and he spikes the ball in celebration, which is a fumble.
Yeah.
And Troy Franklin was more wide open, came back to catch it, stood up, thought he was down, but it was ruled as giving himself up.
Right.
I guess he was kind of ruled down, but he kind of like, they forced a fumble on him after, and it almost wasn't full Plaxico, like he wasn't celebrating turning it over. Anyway, he at least caught passes this week, which is good for our evaluations.
So before being known for shooting himself in the leg, he was known for something almost as stupid.
That's correct. Yeah.
That's
also has a game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl. It's been a wide range of outcomes for Plaxico.
Yes. It's been quite the spectrum.
Bo Nix, other touchdown pass was beautiful one-handed catch by Cortland Sutton in the end zone. So Denver crept back into this, got within 7, kicks in. They have an onside kick out of bounds, but there was offsetting penalties. They got to onside kick it one more time. It almost had a chance, but ends up out of bounds, and the Chargers hold on to win.
Yeah. So, overall, I think this is kind of what this game was, which is 2 really good defenses, 2 offenses that are not great at the moment, with obviously Justin Herbert having the kind of higher ceiling of the 2 quarterbacks, and it's kind of where it ended up, right?
A lot of inconsistency from Denver's passing attack. Yeah, credit the defenses and what they're able to do, but Denver, very inconsistent. For a while, there's so many Bo Nix dropbacks where he's just scrambling around. Looks like a Zach Wilson type of game where all the passes are coming from weird spots outside the pocket rather than within the pocket.
It occurred to me that he's kind of playing the game like Justin Fields, where it's like very quick to just abandon it and start.
Yeah.
And it's – you wouldn't have it.
It's sporadic. I didn't. The other word you don't want me.
Like you just wouldn't have described him playing this way in college, right? It's like the antithesis of the way he played the game in college. It's all relying on his athleticism and out of script and like Russell Wilson style. Let's just buy time and hope something comes up.
He had Nix led the team in rushing with 61 yards. He had an outstanding 21-yard scamper. It looked like he was sacked by Bud Dupree, broke free from it. That was one of the first signs of life from the Broncos offense in this one. So he's feisty.
He is feisty.
Feisty, yet inconsistent, this Denver offense. Somebody asked if Audric Estime made his debut. He made his return with 2 carries for 13 yards. Remember, he played, week 1, fumbled, and then got hurt, was put on IR. And
sent to the hole.
Yes. But he's back.
He is.
Need to see more from Estime.
Yeah. Chargers' offensive line is pretty banged up as well, which is it's a factor in all this, right? Joe Alt is back, looking really good still, but this is a group that's been nicked up and banged up and not where they want it to be. They're not alone in that, but it's part of the reason why Justin Herbert didn't have the best game in the world, why the pass rush for Denver was getting home as well. So just a factor in it.
When you look at the Chargers' season, right, they're coming off the bye in this game. They came off a bye in this game. They're 3-2. Their 2 losses, lost to the Steelers when they did get hurt. Everybody got hurt in that game, and Herbert was battling multiple injuries. And they lost to the Chiefs when all those hurt players weren't on the field. But they're playing all these close defensive-centric games. They also have the Cardinals, Saints, Browns, and Titans over the next 4 weeks. They could easily be 7-2. I'm not saying they're definitely going to win all 4, but they have Bengals and Ravens after that too. But they have a chance to go on a little bit of a run here. I'm curious to see where this team is when they face the Chiefs again in December, right? When they're still trying. They're probably the best challenger in the West right now, especially after beating Denver. They're probably the best challenger for the Chiefs if they continue with this style, because it's going to be – we're going to sit here for the next few weeks with this uncomfortable – I don't know what the Chargers are. Like when they do run the ball well and they do play that good defense, they're tough, but they're sitting on Herbert, and I feel like they could have more, but they don't have enough pass catchers. But they're going to just be this close game, see where it ends, see where it ends up type of team.
Yep.
Great. Nailed it. Let's talk Sunday Night Football. Is this our last game?
Yep.
Is this it?
I believe it is.
Cincinnati Bengals 17, New York Giants 7. Poor Mike Tirico.
Poor Mike Tirico?
He's just sitting on this beautiful stat that the Bengals have one. It was just right on cue. The Bengals have one win in their history with 10 or fewer points. They've won one game. And Tirico is just like, the NBC crew just researched this, and they fed it to him during the break, and he's got it, and he breaks it out, and he goes, they've got one win. And as soon as he gets the stat out of his mouth, Chase Brown breaks free for a touchdown to go to
and
go
chose
over 10
not
points.
to slide, but instead, I'm scored. Screw this.
Oh, I think scoring's fine.
But it's basically the same run that Garendo had, where he was like, "What's the play? Go down."
I'm taking the touchdown. You go up 10 with
Chase.
games
At
over.
no point did it ever occur to him, should I slide? He was like,
No.
"The hell with that! I'm
game's
launching myself into this end zone."
I wouldn't slide. He almost fumbled the game away a couple plays earlier. They got away with one.
Very much did.
This was just Chris called it a weird game. It was a weird game.
It was a weird game.
The only touchdown for a while was the 47-yard scamper by Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Where nobody was there.
Giants defense multiple times early in the game just forgot about Joe Burrow and his ability to run the ball. And he just took off and got big gains.
Joe Burrow, I mean, even with that late run by Chase Brown, Joe Burrow led the Bengals in rushing with 55 yards, and Daniel Jones led the Giants in rushing with 56.
Yeah. It's something
That's
sight to behold.
That's
Daniel Jones running.
Yeah. The best – look, we've been trashing the Bengals defense the last 3 weeks, and it was horrendous.
Yep.
And you also brought up the point, like, it should get better because of who they're
it
playing.
Shouldn't be as It shouldn't be as bad as it has been, and their schedule gets easier.
And this one, the Giants' passing offense had little chance against the Bengals here.
Yeah, without Malik Neighbors, again, the second week in a row concussed, doesn't leave them with a whole lot in terms of receiving threats.
It does not.
I mean, they're back at that point to Darius Slayton being the number one wide receiver, and I think we've seen the limitations of that in years past.
And I think this was the worst game from Daniel Jones of the season, where he was, he had a nice little run.
He'd improved. He'd been playing good football.
He had a nice couple-week run against Dallas, where it's like, hey, everything underneath, he's at least hitting those.
Yeah,
missing a couple deep balls. This game was kind of a little bit of both. Seattle game again last week, I thought he was pretty crisp. Probably his worst passing game, at least since the Browns back in week 3. And the Browns game, I know they put up points, and he had good numbers. But remember, he got away with a negated interception, threw a ball that should have been picked that Malik Neighbors stole. Like, he wasn't actually great throwing the ball in that game.
Right.
But this was probably his worst outing of the year.
Yeah. No, he didn't play well in this game at all. Which, it had been an interesting sort of revival for him. He'd played pretty steady football for a few weeks, and then last week was able to also unlock the deep ball that had been missing from his game. And then this week, basically, it all fell apart. And he just didn't play well at all. And as you said, like, the biggest thing he was doing was running the ball. And it's like, okay, he's good at it, but he's so reckless with his body that it just doesn't feel like a good idea. Like, I know at one point they were sort of saying, they were comparing it to Josh Allen. And we're like, the guy in Buffalo is able to make it work. You know, sending Daniel Jones out with the instruction of just like, hey, go beat Josh Allen, it just doesn't feel like a smart approach to me.
No, I wouldn't.
Like, he has all the self-preservation instincts of a lemming. He's just launching himself at linebackers all the time in a way that simply doesn't need to happen. Like, it doesn't. Even if you're going to use him as more of a power type of runner than a Lamar Jackson, elusiveness out in space type of guy, you still don't need to be launching your head into linebackers.
Well, he's not a power runner, right?
Well, he kind of is.
But he's not like moving defenders back. Is not like a Josh Allen or a Cam Newton.
Well, the point being, it's
he's
like
more long strider speed.
But it's like, he is a powerful runner, but it's when he launches himself into a linebacker, it's effectively an equal encounter, right? It's 230 pounds meeting 230 pounds head on. And even if you win that collision, it's probably not a particularly useful, repeatable skill. Like, just you're not coming out of that well long term, you know?
Yeah.
If you're doing that 10 times a game, that's probably damaging.
Yeah, it's not great. Bengals pass rush was better in this game. Trey Hendrickson, 2 sacks against Andrew Thomas. And look,
who's struggling relatively this season.
Look,
Andrew Thomas.
You don't. I don't judge tackles by sacks.
No,
as much as we say don't judge defenders by sacks, but the 2 times, like, Hendrickson has for a couple of years now had that knack for not just winning reps and creating pressure, but winning reps and finishing the play with key sacks. He had one. They were up 10 to help slow down the Giants' comeback attempt. Had one earlier in the game, but 2 really nice reps against Andrew Thomas. You're right. I mean, Thomas isn't playing the same type of ball as he has in recent years, but Hendrickson, 2 huge sacks. Given that matchup and the fact that he has a tough matchup every week because he does stay on the right side against the best left tackles in the league. Yeah,
Hendrickson and B.J. Hill as well. They highlighted him on the broadcast. He had a really good game. Those 2 had impressive performances. Andrew Thomas, it's on course to be the lowest PFF pass blocking grade from him since his rookie season, where, remember, he was bad as a rookie. Since that point, he's been a significantly better player. And this year, I mean, obviously Myles Garrett wrecked him, but that's Myles Garrett. but he's given up multiple pressures in a few games in a way that we haven't really seen from him previously. So step back from Andrew Thomas, which is not ideal timing for this Giants offense trying to find its feet. Big time for the Bengals pass rush to show up, both Hendrickson and B.J. Hill. And they got a few plays here or there from that defense now.
A couple big plays in this game. The Giants just started going for pretty much every fourth down.
Yep.
They went 4th and 2 in their own territory and failed. But then Zach Moss fumbled it back, so it almost didn't matter. Giants missed 2 field goals in this game. Those were huge. DJ Turner with a huge pass breakup on 4th down. He had a bad pass interference in the end zone that led to the Giants' first touchdown, but he comes back, redeems himself with a 4th down pass breakup that eventually led to the Bengals putting the game away. And the other huge play when the Bengals were up 3 and they're trying to run the clock out. They go run. It's 3rd and 12. They go runs to nowhere. And Joe Burrow scrambles out, big 3rd and 12 conversion to Yosivas. And so, look, Burrow, I don't think it's his best statistical game or anything, but you get the long scramble in there, key play. I think they sparked that offense. He flipped the field, just kind of chucked it up with a big-time throw to Jamar Chase earlier in the game. So Burrow made some huge plays when needed. There was also several plays where the offensive line couldn't pick up a stunt. Azeez Ojulari's running free at him, and he's taking some massive hits. It was kind of an up-and-down performance for the Bengals offense, but Burrow just kept stepping up and making big plays for them. I think he's playing fantastic this season overall, and it's going a little unnoticed because they're only sitting here at 2-4, but they're a few weeks away from, if they could, they should be winning a few more games here, and we're going to be talking about the Bengals maybe finding their stride and getting back into the playoff race.
Yeah, it was like he said in the kind of post-game interview, it was ugly, but they got the win. Like they made it happen. They got it done. That's all that really matters in this case. It's probably true. It wasn't a particularly good game from that offense, but Burrow made the plays when he needed to make the plays. The 3rd and 12, the touchdown run, like he made just enough plays to make it happen. The Giants didn't. So you've also got that, a big potential game swinging, the monster catch and run negated by the illegal man downfield penalty that we were talking about earlier in this show, the RPO. That could have been a big play. Tyrone Tracy for the Giants for the second game in a row he looks really good. They're going to have to figure out a way of splitting that workload when Singletary comes back. I'm not sure you can't outright just go, okay, he's the starter now and Singletary take a seat, but he's very minimum should be taking a significant amount of that workload away from Singletary because he just looks like a playmaker.
It does make with Jones as a running threat, Tracy, Singletary, Malik Neighbors gets back, Slayton as a deep threat. We're getting better as far as the group of playmakers.
Those rookies,
they scored 7 points.
Right. Once Neighbors is back, and that's huge. Like he still leads the league, I think, in receptions despite missing the last 2 weeks. When Neighbors is back in the lineup, and if you increase the workload for Tyrone Tracy, that does completely transform that unit. It makes it a completely different group of playmakers. So it should be better than it was in this game. And I think Neighbors coming back into the lineup makes a big difference. One last sort of tweet, the 33rd team, at the 33rd team FB. Daniel Jones hasn't thrown a touchdown in MetLife in 651 days.
What?
That's his home stadium.
Yikes. And they ran it in last night? Is that right?
So
that's like he didn't break it last night, like it's still going?
Yeah.
It's a lot of days.
It's a lot of days. There's only 365 of them in a year. Now he's, been hurt during that time, but still.
But how many does Cutlets have during that time?
I don't know how many passing touchdowns Cutlets has in that time at home.
Every time I talk about Tommy, I just want to just wish my mom was making me some chicken cutlets right now.
Yeah.
Or veal cutlets. My mom makes some great chicken cutlets. They were all comparing me to Tony Soprano on the last show. Now we're talking about cutlets, and I'm hungry.
Cutlets has at least 2.
It's at least 2.
Just last year.
It's at least 2, for sure.
The majority of his touchdowns came on the road, too.
Oh, man, what a rise to glory he had.
There's a 30 for 30
Is he
somewhere.
still selling cutlets in the parking lot before the game? Like, that dude took his 3 weeks of fame, and it was unbelievable.
There's going to be a 30 for 30 someday on, like, the 2-week, like the Jeremy Lin thing, but with cutlets.
He got his agent into the Italian-American Hall of Fame.
He did.
All sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Which I'm still waiting on, by the way.
Yeah, you're not there.
Did you start my campaign yet?
I may have forgotten.
I am a future Italian-American Hall of Famer.
You would hope. You would hope.
As a 3-time other Hall of Fame inductee, I'm sure I can add a 4th Hall of Fame to my resume.
Why not?
Anything else about the Sunday Night Football game? Bengals, by the way, they're at Cleveland. Interesting schedule here. Browns next week. Chance to get to 3-4.
Yep.
But they struggle against the Browns.
They do.
The Browns is where they usually slip up when they're a good team, right?
Right.
You know, like when they underwhelm against the Browns. So that's an interesting one. They play the Eagles, Raiders, and then another matchup against the Ravens on Thursday Night Football in Baltimore. So Bengals have a chance to get back on track record-wise, and then test things out again against the Ravens, Chargers, and Steelers in 3 straight weeks.
Yeah, they're still very much alive, but they have zero margin for error anymore.
Yeah, best defensive performance, but again against the Giants, and now they'll be facing the worst passing offense we've seen from the Cleveland Browns since the year 2000.
And a historically inept offense.
Yeah, historically inept. All right, so we got Sunday night. Was it today? Monday Night Football tonight. Jets and Bills. Aaron Rodgers. Is he going to carry the flag out this time?
I don't know. Maybe he was saying that before the first game this season, like he was glad that he didn't have to make that call, because of the symbolism or the memories, the jinx it.
Didn't want to jinx it.
So,
all right. Well, we're returning to the scene of the Achilles injury. Bills in town at MetLife. Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Jeff Ulbricht's first game. A lot to watch tonight.
Best beer in football.
We will be instantly reacting, as we always do here on the YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. A good 5-star review always helps. Help the show and everything. And shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks for helping us put it all together and help root with me for my last projection here. Rooting for more than 59.5 rushing yards for James Cook if he plays football tonight. So see how that goes. Anything else you want to say?
No.
Good. Let's get out of here.
Show's over.
We'll see you again on Wednesday. More. Check the mic.